Welcome, Night Owls, to the Book Club After Dark podcast, an inviting moonlit podcast. I'm your host, Danny.
And I'm Michelle. We review fantasy, romantasy, dark romance, and thriller novels.
All things enchanting, intriguing, suspenseful, and maybe a little spicy.
Each episode features intimate discussions on captivating stories, fan theories, and more. And here's your content warning. This podcast contains mature themes and discussions that may not be suitable for all audiences. Episodes include explicit language and descriptions of mature romance, as well as depictions of violence and other intense subject matter. This podcast is rated R for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Yes. And going forward from here, there's going to be lots of spoilers tonight for The Poison. So consider this your spoiler warning.
Let's get cozy because the best stories are told after dark.
Well, drum roll, please, because tonight we are interviewing Shiela Masterson, the author of the Lost God series, Song of the Dark Wood, A Legacy of Stars, and the BookTok sensation that's absolutely, the internet's losing its mind over, The Poison Daughter. So whether you're reading along with us or you're just here for the book talk, we are always glad that you're here. Welcome, Sheila. We're so happy to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. It still makes me laugh to be a BookTok sensation because I'm an elder millennial and I'm not on BookTok. And I was like, all of the authors who are on there who are like working so hard and like making videos constantly must be like, she doesn't even go here.
Yes.
Yeah,
hoodie, glasses on.
But I appreciate it so much because you guys have made me so much cooler to my baby sister who's like 11 years younger than me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, your book has just, I read it, when did I read it? I think I read it in February, and I sent Michelle a message immediately and was like, this is a standalone, like 6-star for me. And we don't even like rate 6 stars. We only go up to 5. And I messaged her, I was like, I know it's on your TBR already, but like, we're gonna have to bump this up. Like you need to, like, it needs to be read. And then I went to go buy your book and I couldn't, they were pulled from everywhere. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But, yeah, it's just an incredible sensation that's hit everywhere. If you haven't seen it, for those listening, if you haven't seen The Poison Daughter, just for a little bit of background here, for good reasons, it's rated a 4.42 out of almost 62,000 ratings. And just it's on Kindle Unlimited, still available. You won't find it right now in stores because it got pulled off the shelves. We'll talk about that in more detail here in a little while, and how it got picked up and all that. We're going to go in deep with that with our Down the Rabbit Hole segment. But the phenomena of The Poison Daughter is just is crazy. It's everywhere. People have loved it. The fact that it's a standalone in a world where we have series for everything in the romantasy genre was deeply satisfying for me as a reader to know that like we were going to get to the book. Although there's some spinoffs that I have questions about. Like, is there going to be opportunity? Like, I need to know. And if you can't tell us, like, that's okay. But also, could you tell us? Like, I don't know. So I'll let Michelle get started with some questions for you. But I wanted to give everybody a little bit of background on you, Sheila. So welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you. So let's get started.
Yeah, we're so excited. I'm so excited to speak with you about this book because the way I read this book in 48 hours, like 48 hours, digested this entire book. I'm so excited because, like Danny said, we don't have. Thank you. I'm normally not the speed reader. That's normally Danny's job. But for this book, I wanted to finish definitely before we had the conversation, but once you get to a certain point in the book, you're like, wait, I can't stop. Like, there's so much going on. Like, there was no point to put it down, so I just did it. And what I love is that this is a standalone, but you were able to build this world in this story. So I want to know what originally inspired this world and your characters.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like so many things. I wanted to write a standalone because, I wrote the Lost God series, which is a quartet. So it's 4 books. They're long. And I think after being in the same world for such a long time, I was like, okay, that was very fun. And there's a lot of great things about writing a contiguous series where you're growing characters and developing them over like a long stretch of time. But I kind of got into this mode where I was really enjoying writing standalones. And I started with these interconnected standalones, or A Legacy of Stars as a spinoff from the Lost God world. And then I really wanted something that had the same feel as like settling into a series where with like the world building and just feeling very full and like a very lived in world. but without having to commit me as the author to writing multiple books and doing multiple launches. I really wanted it to be a standalone. And I had this idea sort of in the back of my mind. I had been wanting to do a magic system that was more environmental based. So I'd done stuff before where it's sort of like, you know, things that are passed down through families or stuff like that. But I really liked the idea that this is sort of affected by this well, and like societies build around water. Like historically, that's like how we kind of center around this. And so I kind of had this idea, and I'd always wanted to write about someone with a poison kiss, because I think there's something to be said for not having that kind of simple intimacy, especially for an older character. I'd been wanting to write an older character.
Yeah.
I don't come for me. I know that 30 is not old. Okay? But in the grand scheme of romantasy, most of the FMCs are like 20 to 25. And so 30 is like a significant departure. And I'm 40, so don't come for me. I'm not saying that 30 is old in general. I'm saying statistically, for
we know
the
what you're
genre,
saying.
it is an older church.
We know what you're saying.
And I kind of liked the tension of someone who was more experienced. I mean, she's been married. She's had multiple partners, which is like something that's apparent from the very beginning. But she does not have that kind of simple intimacy of kissing. And so it kind of becomes this novel thing that when she goes out one night and tries to kiss Mark and he doesn't die, it's really ultimately like her first kiss, which is like so strange at like 30 years old to be like having this like new experience. And even in that moment, she kind of has this feeling of, I thought this was just novel because I couldn't do it, you know, like I thought this was just special because I couldn't do it. But like now I kind of get why people are into it. And I just kind of liked that idea of this like juxtaposition of someone who's very experienced, but also not with this particular type of intimacy. So that's sort of like where it started. And then a lot of it came from, with Harlow's Magic too, I was really thinking a lot about how society, especially, I mean, there's been a lot of inspiration the last 10 years or so, unfortunately, how society sort of expects women to absorb a lot of bad behavior. And that's, you know, it's microaggressions in the workplace, it's sexual harassment that's just sort of like so pervasive in every area of life. And often women are expected to just sort of like smooth over all of it and like make sure that it's not awkward for anyone, even the person who has an issue. And we're only just beginning to understand the impact of that on women's health. Women are much more likely to have autoimmune diseases and chronic illness. And I was thinking about like, well, what if you absorbed all of it, but then you didn't let it just like make you sick? You also like used it against other people. And that's sort of like where some of the magic was coming from in my head too. So yeah.
Harlow kills bad men. What is not to like? I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, every girl needs a hobby.
Okay,
Yes.
right? Every girl needs a hobby. And like her system of like how she's become that, and like her age and how all of those things are identified so early on. And like related to her sexuality, and just like to your point about her experience, that like, you know, you're 30, but like there's still going to be things you're naive about. There's still going to be things in life that are complex that you've never dealt with before, just because you're, you know, quote, older woman, which you're not. But in this world of romantasy, to your point, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be experiencing all the things. You're not. You're still going to be learning and growing and all of that. And I have highlighted so many like quotes in this book that I absolutely like love. Like chapter 3, Harlow's point of view. In the absence of a conscience, men need something to fear. I've made myself their monster. Like what?
Yes.
Mic drop. Like she's just a fucking badass. Henry, we can talk about later. But with her, I was like, oh my gosh. Like as soon as I started to read her, I mean, chapter 3, we're already coming in hot with this stuff. And it's just those types of things, like you could see some of these big parallels of things you drew on from real world that were very evident to me as a reader. And I just really, I'm in my late 30s. Michelle's in her mid early 30s. And so we identify with reading a character that you don't have to start from scratch and doesn't need like all the hand holding. I love that. And I also think it helps propel the story forward because you are doing a standalone. So you just need a character that already has some stuff already taken care of, because if you have a character that needs to be fully built up, well, now you're looking at like 3 books because you got to get her there. So that's going to take some time. I feel like that makes sense too.
Yeah. And I think like we always think of like coming of age as sort of like this YA thing. But I think that like being 40, like I turned 40 in August. And I think thank you. What I realized is there's sort of like there's like multiple coming of ages. There's sort of that you're coming out from under your parents, you're becoming an adult kind of thing that is like that YA. But then I think there's something that happens in your like mid to late 20s where you're sort of coming into your own in terms of like maybe you're finding a relationship, maybe your career is really like going in the direction that you want it to go in. Maybe you're kind of like pulling away from that like primary friend group or finding a more like grounded friend group for the life stage that you're in. And then in your 30s, I think there's just kind of like this different thing where you're almost more focused on yourself and like what you really want to do. Because I think some of it is having the experience of your 20s, kind of the experience of your 30s, and then being able to, for a lot of people in your career, kind of direct things a little bit more, maybe in your relationship, direct things a little more, maybe you're becoming a parent. Like there's a lot of different things that sort of are going on through all of these different stages. And so I was like, I think that for Harlow, she has experienced a lot of these things and she's kind of like coming into this new, she has a certain amount of agency and a certain amount of like confidence in who she is as a person that I don't think you have in your 20s. So she's not really looking to impress. She's certainly not looking to impress any man, although you could make a strong case for the fact that like her family didn't really put her in a position to like really respect a lot of men in general. So
I would argue that for sure.
Yeah. A little trauma. Trauma for sure. Yeah. So on that note, I wanted to ask you, from your building of the story, were you like plotter or pantser? Did you know how this was going to go? Or was there like a scene that changed the direction of the story for you? And how did that work as far as building this world and how that all kind of played out? Did you plot, did you have sticky notes of like, we're starting here and this and that? Like, how did that all work?
Yeah, so I have always been a more intuitive writer. So I'm not somebody who plots the whole thing out from the beginning. I just can't. I wish I could, because to me I think most people want to be the opposite type of writer than they are, because like the grass is always greener. So I'm like, oh, it'd be so much easier if I like knew everything from the beginning and then I could just be really efficient. But it's just never been how my brain works. Like it just doesn't go that way. So I knew sort of like the bigger like mile markers. So I knew what would happen at the midpoint. I knew what would happen sort of in that moment when what we call as authors dark night of the soul. I kind of knew what would happen there, and I knew the big twist at the end. And I knew the twist about Henry. Those were all things I kind of knew from the beginning, but I didn't know exactly how everything would come together. And this is I think it's the 10th or 11th book I've written. They're not everything I've written is published yet. But I really think that every time I write a book is sort of like an exercise in trusting myself, because it feels so irrational to just kind of start writing in that way. And all of the advice that I saw when I was like first trying to write a book and didn't know if I could, was really geared towards plotters. And so I felt like for a long time, like there was something wrong with me, because I couldn't like see the whole story scene by scene like that. But I did, I worked with Becca Syme, who is a writing coach, and she has this program where they talk about personality and writing, and they look at a few different things. So they look at Myers-Briggs and your Enneagram and your Clifton strength. And a lot of what they focus on is Clifton strengths. And my number one strength in Clifton strengths, for anyone who is like familiar, is strategic. And on her podcast, Becca has these interviews that she does with authors. And so she'll have a whole panel where they're all like either number 1 or 2 strategic. And every single one of those authors on the panel were intuitive writers. None of them could plot because it's like, it's the way that your brain works. It's like you have the whole puzzle at once, or like you have the answer to the math problem and you can't like show, you're like, I already have the answer. I don't need to show the work. I just need to like put this out there, you know?
Yeah.
So it's difficult for me to pull the story apart into different pieces. And I kind of just have to go a little bit at a time. And it's like that, the headlights driving down the road, you just need to know like the next scene, just like 10 feet in front of you. And that's how you kind of write the whole book. But there definitely were times where I was like, I don't know, this might be too hard for me. Like this book might be smarter than me, which sounds crazy. But I think only people who are intuitive writers have that experience where they're like, wait, I might be in too deep. And when that happens, I usually call my one critique partner, Tanya Grant, who is a thriller writer. She will call me and she will ask a bunch of questions. And she's like, the funniest part about this is that you'll say you have no idea what you're doing, but then I'll ask you questions. And there's never been a time where you couldn't answer the question I asked you. But it sort of like gets things moving in my brain. And then I can usually see the next little portion of it. And so it's very funny because with this one, I usually don't tell her what the twists are. And I don't tell her everything that's going to happen because I usually want one blind to the story critique reader and one who's like aware. So she's asking me these questions and I'm trying to like not reveal anything, but talk about it in a vague enough way that she can ask me the next question. So bless her, she's so patient, but like it really was a teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah, that's great. I think that there's when explaining your process, it's just like crazy to me because some of the lines that I've highlighted, I just always wonder like, how do you get there? And like one of the top highlights on Kindle Unlimited, the biggest one is from Henry in chapter 5, is like when people are first getting started. I think you're going to know what line I'm talking about, but he literally says, Harlow, don't run because I'll chase you. Girl, the number of highlights to that. No way every girl was like, oh my God.
I know. I've been tagged in a lot of posts about that. And I was like, I actually was not even aware that was a top highlight, but that's really funny.
Oh my gosh, it is a top highlight. Yes, it is a top highlight.
Immediately gets the blood boiling because I was like, well, we clearly need to run. You challenged, obviously. And I know. Because you said that you knew the twist. Did you know every twist? Because there are multiple. Like, are we talking about the sister's death? Are we talking about the brother? Are we talking about his magic? All of that you already had plotted, or did some of them surprise you?
Yeah, okay. And that he was death. Like, I knew all of those. I just was sort of like, how the hell am I going to do this? Because I was like, this is so many different things. Like, there's so many cards stacked up, and I don't know how to like do them one at a time. Because a lot of writing is like in the first half, you're opening all these loops, and in the second half, you're closing them theoretically, hopefully. And so you kind of get to this point where, and that's why a lot of times readers will be like, oh my gosh, the second half felt like it moved so fast. But that's because the first half was doing all of this setup.
And so you have to build
when it closes, then you're like, oh, wait, this is closing this thing. And then you're thinking about all of the other things that need to be closed. And it just kind of keeps stacking up like that. So that's how it should work. And it probably should feel like it's accelerating a little bit.
It did. It did. The last quarter, I was like, text him like, what do you mean the sister died? What do you mean? What do you mean? Like, all caps, whites.
She like sends me these all caps text messages. And I'm like, I just don't know. My exclamation point. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know how to help you. Yeah.
It was a ride. The last quarter, I'm like, what is all these things are happening? What do you mean? It's all happening. So that makes sense that you had at least those plotted out. So, or you knew those ahead of time, because the way you executed them, it made me go back and question, like with his magic and him having, being like double blessed. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. He was able to take away her pain, but it wasn't like a surprise. It was a surprise for the characters, but I'm like, oh wait, no, that makes sense. Like, it wasn't just you dropping
the pieces
something in there.
Clicking.
Yeah. So amazing job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So my next question, because your characters, even your side characters, are so well developed. Which was your favorite character to write overall?
Oh my gosh, definitely Harlow.
Okay.
I think like it feels like cheating to say so, but like she just has such a distinct voice, and characters like that are so much fun to write because sometimes they like surprise me. You know, there were definitely scenes where I was like, okay, I know what's gonna happen here. And then other scenes like the scene with Shane, that was not planned. I was like, what is this? Even when I came back to edit it, I completely forgotten that scene existed. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, what's going on this day? That like, I think sometimes with some of these scenes, I'm so locked in on the character's point of view. And especially when it comes to anything that has to do with intimacy, which is not just like physical intimacy, but like anything where you have to be like that, like writing that close to the character. I often forget about it, and often it is spicier scenes. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, there's like one spicy scene in that book. And then later I'm going back to edit and I'm like, there is a lot more than one spicy scene in this book. Like, I'm thinking about the hunt, you know, I'm thinking about that.
Yeah.
And I like completely forgot about this scene until I got to it. And I was like, oh my God, when he said, let's tell my wife she's beautiful. And I was like, what was I doing this day? I was like, couldn't have been me. I was not present for this. Somebody
It
else
was
got
a
an
dark,
body.
this was a dark, like that part. I was like, is this a dark romance scene? Like, this is like, he's like literally tied up to the chair with like some curtain rope. She has her underwear stuffed in her mouth. I'm like, what is going on here?
It's like, listen, I don't know, but that's what I mean. I'm like, she was driving. I was in the passenger seat. And later when I came back and read it, I was like, I've got to cut this scene. I was like, this is crazy. But it's, you know, everything that is in there is always in some way to show something about the power dynamic between them or something about like what has shifted in terms of how they feel about each other. And so it is an interesting scene because he gives her the opportunity to like say her stupid word and she doesn't. And he knows that she won't. But I also think there's something to be said for Henry because he knows that if he asks her outright, she'll never say yes. She'll never say yes, ever.
Of course.
Because it's a competition between them and she's never going to give him that. So he finds like other ways to like check that it's okay with her. And that's why like I'm like that scene is so I feel like every time I'm like I can't.
No, well, and that was so important though. I mean, sorry, that was so important because when she does finally say star in like the second to last chapter, like I like broke. I'm like, no, she gave up. Like, what do you mean? Like,
but it was for like a totally different.
It was for an emotional
reason.
thing.
The driving was for some like the reason for that was it ripped my heart out when she finally said it. And I was like, okay, so we're okay with like our body being harmed in any type of physical way. We don't really have boundaries on any of that. But now we're at this like, okay, I can't. This is my line. We finally see where her line is, like at the end of like, and it just was her mental health journey. The way I was not ready. The way I was not ready for that.
You have an idea of her.
Yeah, you're getting inkling.
Yeah, and she is not presenting that way. Like she is not presenting that way, and she does not see herself that way.
Yeah,
but you see it in the way other people talk to her. Like you see it in the way Callan talks to her toward the beginning. And once you know, and then you go back and look at everything in the way B talks to her, like
the carefulness.
That everybody is like a little careful. And from her perspective, it's because they think she's volatile and she like, is she
or like the poison kiss?
Who is she gonna kill now?
Yeah, exactly.
But from their perspective, you know, people are wishing her like condolences and stuff. And when you think she thinks it's about her husband, and that's what she like keeps relating it to. And so then later when you find out, it's like all of this stuff, you're like, oh my God, wait, like this has been going on this whole time. And I think she is a character who has a much higher threshold and is much more comfortable with physical intimacy than emotional intimacy, which we even see like in the marriage ritual scene. Like when they're doing the thing where they're under the veil, she's so much more uncomfortable than when they're literally fucking in front of a room full of people. Like she's literally like, I would rather.
The way I was like, Sheila, girl, okay,
I would rather do that twice. And like she can't, like she cannot. She like can't handle, like she makes the joke of like where he's like, tell me like a secret, and she said, my first husband had a bigger cup.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, and he
like not mad.
I'm
Like what?
yeah, like so caught off guard that like he like laughs too, but like she's very uncomfortable in that moment. Like she would rather be doing anything else. She wants to like crawl out of her skin than like share a secret. And I think that's like, you know, that's like, we see it several times, like even when she talks to B, like we see how private she is about everything, but you also understand it with the way that her family is.
Yeah.
And so when she's sitting there with him and she does tell him why she does it, which I'm like, is interesting because she is so like controlled about everything, but she knows she has to give him something. And also Harlow's an interesting character in that she is like skeptical of the divine, but also not willing to find out if she offends them. So like, I think she sort of like had that moment where she's like, a sign, I'll do this, you know, but like, that's like the skin crawling part for her, as opposed to like, she's like, I'll be naked in front of whoever. That's fine.
Yeah, she doesn't care. She's like completely whatever about it. There is one scene where, it's speaking of like Harlow and like her humor. It's a Henry point of view chapter 14. And he's like saying she's hurt to like someone else. And she's right there. And she's like, actually, she's fine. Just eager to get off the horse. Like she just has these one-liners out of nowhere. And I died. Every single time I was like, damn, girl, okay. Like, I love you. You're fantastic. Like her little one-liners of just like injecting humor in the most like ridiculous of situations. You're like, Harlow, okay.
Yeah. Even when that guy tries to kill her when she first gets to the fort, and Henry's like, she's harmless, and she is like, excuse you, like I'll show you how harmless I am when I'm smothering you in your sleep, you know?
Yeah. Little do you know. Yeah, friends.
And I do like you have to feel for Henry, who like really thought he was gonna get like a pretty vapid bimbo, and instead he got like a serial killer, because like that is,
and honestly that kind
definitely
of does it for him. So I feel like that was a win. You know,
he needs that.
Exactly.
He needs that
He
check.
likes being roasted. Yeah. So
I mean,
her inner
keep him in check.
Right. Her inner dialogue is like, I shouldn't push him, but making him crazy is one of the few joys in my life. Like, okay, Harlow, thank you.
This is all I have. Don't take this from me. I'm stuck here and I'm bored.
I also loved Bryce. So Bryce was like my favorite side character because he also had those funny one-liners like Harlow. That was just like, where are you? Like, what is going on in right now? That I can't. And
very
that whole
like impulsive. Yeah. So when like when he first meets her and just like talking about her, and she's across the room, and he's like, and Henry said something about her dress, and he said, looks more like it belongs on my bedroom floor. Yeah. And Henry's like,
hello,
my wife.
He's
like,
no
you
shame.
just were talking about how you don't like her.
Yeah.
Like I would, you know? And he totally does not care. He is also very into like dangerous women. Like the three of them talking there and them being like, there is something wrong with you. You need help. Yeah.
Well, and then I believe Henry comments on how him and Bryce had shared Miriam. I need to know why that we're just dropping that in there with no other precursor. By the way, they had a threesome.
It's just to give context that he's a little more, you know, possessive about Harlow.
Okay.
Well,
so he's like, okay, just to kind of like show that. And well, Bryce is also confused. She's like, you don't even like her yourself. Like, why do you care that I'm telling you that her dress is on the floor? Why do you, like, who cares? Why are we possessive all of a sudden? He's like, God damn. Okay, Mr. Birding, like, what's going on? Relax, friend. Like, what are we doing? So on that note,
And they're just Carter's just watching this go on.
I love Carter.
He's like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
My question, character-wise, are there any side characters that you would like to give their own book? So I know that this book is technically a spinoff or a standalone. Are there any spinoffs that you have in mind to create, novellas, anything else that would continue this world? I would love to know that.
Yeah. So the one that I get asked about all the time is Bryce. He's everyone's favorite. And
Please.
obviously he has not found his person yet. And I have, I definitely wrote this to be a standalone, and I was not intending to write like anything else in this world, but I like the world so much and I like the magic system and everything. And frankly, it is nice to work within a world that you've already created because you don't have to like start from scratch. You still have to introduce everything, especially when you're talking about standalones, which is annoying because then you know everything, but you still have to reintroduce it in a way that feels smooth, which is always the hardest part. So, but I have sort of like, just like the barest hint of an idea. And I don't know if it's enough to like warrant a full book, if it would be a novella, if it would just be like a bonus chapter or something like that. I have to kind of like, I always have to it's always like my brain is running like a background process. And there are a couple threads that I left open in the book in case I wanted to develop other things in the world. And that was intentional. I tried to wrap up everything with the core story, at least for now, because like in my mind, anything related to like fully resolving the drained or anything like that would be a much longer, that would be a series. Like that would be like a full thing.
Here for it, would read every single word. So just saying.
But I would have to feel like whatever, like if I was going to write another book in this world, I would have to feel like it could hold up against the original. So I'd have to feel like it was just as like compelling and interesting. And like that I felt like the dynamic between the characters was just as strong, because I think that was really like a driving force in this book is sort of that tension between Henry and Harlow. But I wouldn't want to do like the same exact thing, you know, but I would love to have them as side characters as well. Like, I think that would be really fun. So I would say like, it just would have to feel to me like it was full enough to like hold up against the original, because also readers are really like brutal. And if they feel like anything isn't close, or even if they just don't like it as much, they'll be like, it was a money grab or whatever. And I'm like, it took me 3 years to write The Boys and Daughter. So like if I was writing another book in this world, I would have to feel very strongly like it could hold up, because I think also when you write a sequel or when you write another book in the same world, it has a tendency to affect what people thought about the original also.
Right.
So I'm always like, oh, do I touch it or do I leave it? You know, so
I can already tell that you're so concerned about what the reader will feel and think that it's probably going to be a good product. Like it's going to be a good book and release no matter what, because that care is already there. You're already showing that you have so much care. But I will tell you this, you will never, ever fully appease BookTok and Bookstagram. Someone somewhere is going to be like, oh, she wrote a second book because the first one was popular. No matter what you do. Oh, it was a standalone. Oh, of course, now she's coming out with another spinoff because the first one was popular. No, actually, it's because a lot of people just love reading it. And we love this world. Like, could that be a reason? You know what I mean? Like, there's always just going to be somebody
and it's also
who has
like
something to say.
Like, I do fall in love with the characters and stuff. And like, I love Bryce as a character. I think he's really fun. And I did put some stuff in there intentionally because I was like, this is something we could kind of explore later if stuff happened, because we hear a little bit from Henry about his perspective on Bryce and some of the things that he notices. And it's just like a hint, because, you know, guys don't talk about their feelings,
knows a lot,
you know, but they notice some stuff. And so I think like, I do think there's stuff about it that I find really compelling, but I think what readers sometimes don't understand is like, sometimes you fall in love with the world, or sometimes you fall in love with the character as you're writing and you never intended. Like in my Legacy of Stars book, which is a spinoff from the Lost God series, there is a side character who just kind of like, you know, sometimes you just have a character who takes over. And I was like, oh my God, I like love her so much. She's so much fun. She's so funny. Like, and she is like the youngest sister of the MMC. And she is just a riot and like truly like such a fun character to write. And I was like, oh no, as I was writing it, I was like, oh no, I'm going to end up writing a book. Like, this was not the plan. That's like what happens. I'm like, I don't have time for this. I have a schedule in my brain. And so I would like to go back to that character someday. And that's what happens sometimes. It's like, you're like, oh no. And as soon as readers read it, they were like, we want Alexandra's book. They were like, we really want this book. And I'm like, oh no. And it's great. It's great that everyone loves like the character so much. Like that's such a joy, and it's such a good sign of that, like they feel like real people. And that's how I always want them to feel, like they have contradictions and flaws, and like they feel like your friends that you know who like does this stupid thing and you wish they would stop, and like they've just got some growth to move into. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I would say I would. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Let's kind of go. No, go ahead.
3, 2, 1. Well, I would say if you feel so compelled to see if Bryce does see color, I would 1000% read that book.
Oh.
So
yeah,
I would like to know if Bryce finds out what colors are again.
Yeah.
So fair.
Okay. My other side comment, I was going to kind of talk to, we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but some of Harlow's mindset about the world that she's in, and being a woman in this really male dominated society, and how she's basically chronically underestimated, and how she uses that to her advantage often. And this is how she's successful as an assassin. And she'll say, women can never be too rich, too confident, or too knowledgeable about poisonous plants. That's hysterical, but also
True.
I love that.
Yeah. So true, though.
Great job.
I mean,
yeah.
it's still relevant today. It's still relevant.
Yeah. And then she talked a lot about community building, and like how removing of access of information has been chronically the downfall of many societies. And there's a layer of depth that you could focus on, the romance piece, but there are some really significant political layers of depth to your world building that I think were very intentional. And the next kind of questions we're going to get into are related to that. But I highlighted so many things that I was like, wow, this is so currently relevant to our world now. And I
wish
see
it wasn't.
I know. But I liked all the ways that was built into this book as well.
So for your world, it's like you create this really intense magical system, and in the Luna Mead, there are a lot of places that sound amazing to be in, but then you have the woods and then the fort, and there's this balance of like there's like the magical and the fantastical, and then there's the dark. So if you were placed in your world, where would you personally want to live? Are we living more in the fort, or are we living in the city?
I feel like I am very risk averse. And so as much as I might like to say I'd live in the fort, I don't know that I would want to be, like, I think I would have a hard time being somewhere where the wall has fallen. Like it would be like in me. Where it feels like you're a little more insulated in the city, and there's a lot, they have the fallbacks, and there's more people to kind of like defend you. And we know, like, one of the first things we know about the fort is that they're having trouble like manning the entire wall. So I think I would have to go with the city, and also just because there's like more to do and more to explore.
There's multiple bars that you can go to. Although
so true.
Story time is kind of a fun one. So
I know, and that is for all of like the reader girlies, So like it is also compelling. Yeah. So I get it. I just feel like, but the other problem is that there's not a lot of single men there. So it's like,
that's
like
true.
Such a tough that.
Yeah. My question relating to world building and politics, and how you included certain things in this book. What do you want readers to take away from that in terms of parallels you saw? What was the intention there? And do you think that would continue in any spinoff, or how did you address that in this book?
Yeah, I definitely think that there's sort of this, definitely a level of like classism between like the blessed and the unblessed, so to speak. I did have some thoughts about how, in recent years, some like religious speak has come into a lot of the political sector in terms of like who has access to things and who doesn't. And I was thinking about that also. And people being treated as lesser than if they don't fit into like a very specific category. And certainly, unfortunately, the inspiration abounds in the real world when it comes to all of this. And I was thinking a lot about what we as a society consider acceptable losses in terms of people who are just kind of like blood. We'll just take their blood, like quite literally sometimes. But I think just in terms of you should be grateful that you're here, that you live here, that you're protected. You know, there's a lot of themes that feel particularly appropriate now, and even more so than when I was like first writing it. And I think this idea that I think kind of like in the resolution of that, when they sort of realize what is going on, the thought that these people are unblessed, so to speak, but that they still have a power that is kind of affecting you because they're putting their energy into something in a negative way, and that is affecting you. It makes a lot of sense because there is this thought that the only blessing that can be given is by the divine, but like the whole thing was about consent, and like it was supposed to be a choice that they make to honor like their divine. And so it should have stayed as something that was like a blessing, but it's always greed. It's always greed that like ruins something that should be like reciprocal. And I think that often in this day and age, everything is sort of like a race to the bottom and very driven by greed. And it's always the people at like sort of the bottom of the class system, or sort of at the bottom of the hierarchy of who has the best jobs, who can, who's out on their mega yacht versus who is like struggling to pay rent this month, that kind of thing. It's always the people at the bottom who are feeling that the most and who are suffering the most. But it's always the people at the top who are the loudest about what we have to lose, So I think definitely reflecting a lot on things going on politically here and the way that we selectively preserve history and try to like put great effort into framing things in a way that doesn't make anyone uncomfortable about all of the oppressive history of a country or people or a race. So
interesting. Yeah. And I think too, right, I don't know who said it, but one of the most famous historical quotes too is, right, history is written by the victors. And I think that is very true in our world and society overall, globally, not just limited to where we live. And you can see that in the way that even media is spread and consumed and all of those things. So I thought that was really interesting. One thing I wanted to talk about too were Carla's parents and siblings. Kind of walk us through her parents a little bit, because she's a mother of many children and very apathetic towards like everybody, and so cut off. And she has a lot of trauma herself. And then her father is a piece of work. Let's just say that he's something. What were we thinking about when we were writing them, and how did that kind of play out? Because we know that the reason Carla's even with the Henry situation is because of her parents, and she's 30. She's still having to go and, all right, I'm doing this one thing and then I'm getting the fuck out of here. Like, you're no longer going to have any more power over me. Fine. I'll do this one last thing for you. And like, that's it. I'm done playing. I'm done being like a pawn in this overall scheme that you two basically have. And her mother's neglectful, blatantly.
Yep.
So what kind of was part of that, and where did you draw on to create such intensity for them? Because truly there was a lot. It was at times, honestly, from a trauma perspective, it was difficult to read. And that's where I think that line of like dark romantasy to romantasy is kind of blurred when you get into some of these, because you could say like, oh, vampires and all that, it's dark. I don't think it's that for what I read from you, Sheila. It's literally like the emotional depth and like some of the trauma that you've managed to put so much of that in this book. Yeah, which I loved. I love dark romances. So like, so I just kind of, can you walk us through that and like your thought process there?
Yeah. So I definitely, when I was thinking about her parents, I didn't want them to just be like, evil, because that's boring. But I think that when it comes to her mother, and if you kind of think about what it takes for the two of them to hold power in a place where all of this stuff is going on, and I'm sure, there's some truth to all the stuff that Harlow, like that they say to Harlow too, which is like, everybody thinks that this is an easy thing to do. Like everybody thinks that it's easy to be in charge and at the top, but like it's actually really hard, especially in a place like this where you have a lot of people who are isolated, and to be able to manage that and keep it from being like just a riot all the time is impressive. And unfortunately, the way that they've chosen to do that is to rule with fear, and that can be effective. And I think that from my perspective, I think like with her mother, there is definitely the recognition that I think for a lot of people, it's like, this is how we've always done things. And it's much easier to just kind of go along with the way that we've always done things, because this is just how it goes. And like, she may not want to be that way, but she's also not the type of person that's going to resist or fight against it. And I think that once she kind of gets to a certain place, like with the kids, because even at the end when Kellen sort of, Harlow is like, what are we going to do about Abel? And Kellen's like, do you really think you're the only ones who had this experience? Like, he's the only one. Like, Kellen and him were like the real only threats to their father. And so it's a very fine line to walk of like being useful and not being a threat. So you can't be too useful because then you will be a threat. And so I think you can see the wisdom in both of them in different scenes. And I think a lot of people have like a very strong opinion about Abel because they see him being friendly with Rafe in the first chapter, in like the dinner at the beginning. That we already know that they tried to marry Adia off to Rafe and she couldn't bring him to heel, but they tried to bring him to heel personally, and that neither of those things worked. So if you're Abel and you're the heir, and this is the biggest threat to your family and to your power, what other option do you have? Like, keep your enemies close, I think he is in a lot of ways sort of subtly wise. And he seems like from Harlow's perspective, he's an asshole. That's the guy who's beating their sister. But from Abel's perspective, what is he going to do? Alienate that guy and have absolutely no access to him? And like the rest of the family basically already has. So he's kind of seeing the only way that this can work. And you see it in him at other times that he is not as like one note as he seems outwardly. Even in the way like he talks to us, right? Like, which is like oldest child, the youngest child too. I think like an interesting dynamic because there's such a big age range between them.
15, that's like basically she's a baby
together.
Yeah.
So just like such a different thing. But I think with her parents, it's, by the time they get to Harlow and Adia, she's already done this a few times. And so it's easier for her, just like Harlow says at one point, like her mother's blessing is recognition. So she can see people's like past. And Harlow says, I don't have to worry about her because she doesn't look at any of her children's past because she doesn't want to see that. And her mother basically survives entirely off of dissociation and like separating herself from any responsibility. And that's why even at the end, she says like, I didn't realize that you needed me to step between you and your father. And Harlow is like, what do you mean? Like, I was a child and I knew. Like, what do you mean?
That scene hit hard. That scene hit hard when I was reading it. And there was even a flicker from the mom, like her like eyes widen, like she kind of sees that for a split second. And then she completely like glazes back over. And it's just, reading it as a daughter, reading it as a mother, like I felt Harlow's just pure rage and anger, and she's just throwing shit at them because like she has to put all this like energy somewhere. And it's just, it was really powerful writing. It was really hard to read. understanding all the trauma that she went through and how your parents are supposed to be the ones protecting you, but they're the ones harming you and letting you be harmed. And just feeling her helplessness and her rage was just so, it was a lot to take in as a reader.
And that seems like so hard to write, because it is like, and there were a couple of times where I was like, this might be too much, but I was like, I do think it's important because she has so much like rage at that point that I'm like, you can't, like, it has to be resolved. She has to find a way to resolve it. And I didn't want Henry to step in and like be the savior.
He didn't save the day. She took care of that herself.
That kind of book. Yeah. Like she has her own score to settle. And I don't think when she started out that was the intention, that she knew that she was going there, but at every opportunity that she gave them to have redeeming qualities, they just didn't. And I think she would have loved for them to have had an explanation for why they did that in that moment. And they just did not. No. And so I do think like it was hard to write them because they are just so disconnected. But a lot of it, I think, just comes from having to be, I mean, at the end of the day, as horrible as they are responsible for all these people, and they've made terrible choices, and they've made like unforgivable sacrifices, both like their own daughter and the entire fort, you know, like
children, rich killing children.
Children, exactly. Jesus, that whole thing was like, what the fuck? No, and so like on that note, on her mom, I think I keep going back to that because Michelle and I both talked about this a lot on the show. But one of the reasons I really love this book is, I've had a neglectful mom, and there's a lot to unpack with that, but we're not here for my own therapy session. But I thought that the way that you really went there with Harlow and went and examined that in depth and took the time, because you could have glazed over that. You could have like, she killed him and like, that was it. But you didn't. Harlow said comments like, I can't believe how this is specific. I can't believe, while it's talking about her magic, I think it's also very true of how people justify the bad by glazing over it. So she said, like, I can't believe how my mother's mind has written over reality with a narrative that makes her blameless. And the way you could say that's magic, and on the other side of it, is it though? Because I really think people who induce trauma, especially induce trauma on their children, are like, I would do the best I could at the time. Like, what do you want me to do about it now? Right?
Yeah,
is that
like,
a form of magic or
difficult? You know, and I think that to admit in that moment that she bore responsibility for what happened with Adia or what happened to Harlow would be taking on all of the collective things.
Yeah, she's not going to do it.
Have likely happened
all the children,
to all of her other children.
Yep.
And that's just not like the momentum to get her to that place is just too large for what she's capable of in that moment. And I think Harlow has that moment of realizing, and it's just like, it just makes it like so much worse, because she's like she has carried this all of this time, and her mother hasn't carried any of it. And she's like so mad that like everyone else has suffered so that she can feel good or just blind to it.
Yeah. Or even just the idea of like closure. She like realizes like that it's just never going to happen. She's just never going to get the thing. And that was almost therapeutic itself. Sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the same thing, because with having narcissistic parents, and you don't get that closure, that doesn't get to tie neatly in the real world often, especially like, you know, generations before us, their parents didn't go to therapy. So this trauma that parents inflict, having that accountability is something that we don't often see. So reading it and reading how it doesn't resolve nicely, like there isn't like a happy moment of them realizing, oh, wait, we fucked up. Because that's not life. So I like how you didn't tie that neatly. Like you did, and she ended up getting her, you know, her revenge in a way where, and even still, like even her revenge with Rafe, it wasn't, you tackled grief in a way that it doesn't tie neatly, because she's like, I just want him gone at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, like, I don't want to beat him up. Like, that's not going to do anything to me. I'm still hurting. So I feel like that was important for readers who have had narcissistic parents, who have had trauma, who've experienced grief, to read that it doesn't just all magically go away.
Yeah. And I think like when, for someone like Carlo who has complex PTSD and I have complex PTSD, it affects every single thing in your life. Like there's nothing that you do that you don't carry it with you, even if you are very like, even if you've done a lot of therapy, even if you've worked on yourself a lot, which frankly, like Carlo has not. I mean, she's back onto therapy, guys. Like,
she's doing the best.
Therapy is a little different.
Found an outlet, but is it a healthy outlet? I mean, depends.
You could take up tennis. I feel like it wouldn't have the same effect. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But she, she is someone who is feeling that in every moment and is carrying it into everything that you do. And you see it. Like she does have impulse control issues. She does feel better if she can see the problem. I mean, I think I can always tell the people who have trauma, like the readers who have trauma versus the readers who don't have trauma. Because the readers who don't have trauma are like, why is she doing nothing? And the readers who do have trauma is like, oh my God, what? It's like looking in a mirror. Yeah. And like maybe not so much with the murder, but like, with the rest of it, with the impulse control and, some of that stuff. But I think for her, even when she's in that scene with the two of them and is having them, like reenact these things, she's saying like, even men, she's saying, I know that this can that you can never suffer the way that I've suffered because you don't care about anything the way that I care about her. Like, and so I can't, all I can do is kill you because the thing you both care about most is yourselves. Like, and so like at the end of the day, I can never, like she realizes she can never like inflict that on them. And when it comes to Rafe, it's like, all she wants is the peace of knowing he's gone at that point because she's been so angry for so long and she's fantasized about murdering him for so long. And Henry is so angry because like when somebody, and I have this thing, I'm the oldest sister. So like whenever anybody like hurts my sisters, oh my gosh, makes me so mad. And I'm like, I will, and so like, I understand his thing of being like, I'm gonna like literally enact all of the wounds that he put on her. And then I'm going to heal him. And then I'm going to do it again. And like, he's like, she's there for like the second round of it. And like, and Henry's still mad. Like he's not like through it yet because it's still new for him. For her, it's not. And so I think like, but by the time she has like done this with her parents and then gone there with him and also like found out about Henry and everything, she just wants it to be done. And she just wants to know that he's gone and that like he's not going to hurt her. And like I think that fear around him is so real. So like even in the not in the first chapter where they're at dinner, but when he dances with her at the engagement thing and he says like don't fall or whatever. And she like doesn't know why she feels this like visceral like fear when he's there. And then he's gone and she's like so angry that she's like shaking. And Henry is like, what, she picks up on it. He's like, what is that? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But she just sort of like blows right past it because she just thinks it's because she hates him. And then later we kind of get to like the other end of the story and we have them sort of in like reversed roles. And she's just like, again, like I can't make him suffer the way that I suffered or the way that she suffered.
One of the questions that wasn't answered in that ending scene is from Kellen, was there poison in my soup? And it was asked twice and she dodges the answer. She doesn't give a direct answer either time that she's asked. So was there poison in Kellen's soup?
This is the one reader question that I won't answer. I always ask people what they think. Do they think that she poisoned his soup? What do you guys think?
I think she did. I think she did.
You guys are unanimous. That's funny.
I do.
I think she did. And when she had that conversation with him, there's when she like clicked, like, oh, wait, you were a pawn in their game also. Because before that, she thought that Kellen was or part of like the orchestrating of the guards being gone when with the attack with Rafe and Adia. So, and then up until that point, she thought that, and then at that point, she's like, "Oh wait, you're not." So I think he would have died if she didn't like throw the soup.
Yeah. I definitely think like for her, she has like a very specific idea of Kellen, but in that conversation that they have where he says to her, like, I think that's at the very end where he says to her, like, you can see their mom like in moments being a mother, like when she tells Kellen, like, you have to be really careful because the second that he feels like you're not on his side will be that'll be it. There'll only be one time that happens and it'll be over. And so he kind of has to be impeccable forever because he's very useful. That's a very useful magic and it's not super common. And so him having that and having such a strong grasp of it is important. But we are getting kind of hints the whole time that there's like more going on because he has a really strong grasp of it. We don't see it super often. He doesn't use it very often. And so when he at the end is like, I only had one chance, like I had one shot to do this. And I knew that it had to be like perfectly executed or like that was going to be it. And he has a wife and children and like another baby on the way. So like all of that is in his head too. Like he's thinking about her and the city, but he's also thinking about his wife and his kids. And like he can't do anything that's going to like get them pulled into it either. So, and obviously his parents are not above that. So
no, no, that's great. Well, dark, but it's great in the sense that I like too that even in, and I hate to compare like other series because there's really no comparison, but one of the things that still to this day makes Hunger Games as a series stand out to me more than anything else is her ability to tie complex grief and understanding of really dynamic and complex characters together. And while it's called the Hunger Games, it's called the Poison Daughter, the emphasis, there's so much more depth to this. There's a whole lot more going on that on the human level, well beyond the fact that, she kisses someone and he could die. Okay. Yeah. It's such an oversimplification of the dynamic here and what you've achieved in one book, the amount of emotions, the yearning, even the tension between these two. And like, we finally are waiting for them to get together. The way I was waiting for him to chase her, the way I was waiting for that scene. Okay.
Yeah.
For it. I was waiting and it's going to happen. That's why I have so many highlights, but like, that's a small part of like this masterpiece basically that you've written, and it's incredible. And I just feel like it's in that realm of the reason, Suzanne Collins for me and like her series is so impactful is not just because because it's the Hunger Games. Like who wants to read a book about killing kids in a game? Like that's not what made the Hunger Games popular. It was what that stood for. It was all the complexity to that. It was all the layers to that made that story. And when I think of the Poison Daughter, she is one pawn of this like overarching huge system that they really she doesn't even really understand her power in. And she's coming to understand that. And you're watching even through Henry, who there's this dynamic of, and I have a question on that. Why did you make their world black and white? Like, where did you come up with that? That's just a unique thing, like the vision. Yeah. Like, I didn't even, I thought that was so crazy and different. I had never read anything like that. I was like, that's really unique and pretty cool. How did you with that?
I was thinking a little bit about like the death wish in general being not fully of life or fully of death, sort of like a little bit of both. And so in my brain, I was like, oh, well.
On the same vein of Henry, obviously with poison, we have to have our MMC be immune. And after like the first kiss, I'm like, okay, how is he immune? How did you come up with the whole process, honestly? Because that's traumatizing too. The man went through how many murders by the hands of his own parents? Like,
Yeah,
how did you come up with that idea?
Some of the most like difficult creative parts of this book were coming up with new ways to like kill him. It's like, man, I really did not think this was going to be the place where we were like bumping up against like the limits of my creativity, but like I'm just like running out of ways to murder him. So yeah, I was thinking a lot about how people deal with like something traumatic like their daughter dying and Henry dying at the same time, and how that would have felt for his mother, who is someone who has this very rare power. And so so she, you know, brings him back to life. And then in my mind, it's sort of this, he feels a lot of pressure now because he was not supposed to be the heir, and now he is. And she died for him. So that's a lot of like survivor's remorse as well.
Yeah.
And so I think for him, he wants to do whatever he can to make them feel better because he feels this guilt that he survived and she didn't. And but also like that's what big sisters do, you know. So
Yeah.
so
that got me my feels, Sheila. I was like, oh, because when you find out why she couldn't be brought back, you're like, oh my God, like it was just a lot. You took us. Ugh.
Yeah, and I think I really wanted him to be sort of kind of trying to fix, because especially like he has this power to heal, like that's one of his gifts, but he also, I think like there's like this personality piece that comes into all of their magic. And so he really wants to like fix it for them in some way. And so for him, he already died once. Like, why not? You know, like he knows she can bring him back. And so I think he feels guilty. He is grieving. And I think it almost makes him feel better to be able to do something like with it, even though it's so like dark and twisted, like the way that all of that is. And especially when he, like, you know, they have that conversation after the fight with the breeder when Carter says he would never use that on someone or whatever. And then later you find out that he did use it on Henry. And like, and Harlow even like had the moment with that where she's like, oh God, like, like that's like, that's a lot, you know, that's a lot for him to have gone through. And so I think a lot of it, like so much of the story is about grief, and you see it in subtle ways. And it's not, I think, until the very end when you realize kind of how much it is.
A lot.
But I think from his perspective, that was really how they dealt with it. And he just kind of went along with it because of all these complex things that he was feeling and all this guilt he was feeling. So that's sort of how I had it in my head, that I liked the idea of that it was going to be really hard for her to even kill him another way, because obviously she has no problem with murder. And she's not like a badass FMC in terms of like being able to like, you know, fight with a sword or anything. Like she can defend herself, but she's not like a warrior. But she's smart, and I'm sure that she could come up with a lot of other ways to kill him, which she tried. And so I was like, I like the idea that she's there and she's like, okay, well, poison's not going to work. Like I can do something else, like if I need
disembowelment.
And then to like slowly find out all these things. And then it's sort of like a game. She's like, surely I will come up with something that hasn't happened yet. And so I love the dynamic of her like making crafts to threaten him with. And I was like, this is so unhinged. Like, she is not committed to like anything girly unless it is like to threaten him with. Like she's like,
she like makes her spaghetti. Yeah. And it becomes like just a point of flirtation, honestly, back and forth. I'm like, we are joking and flirting about how you die.
So unhinged.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And I think like some of it is, you know, once she knows this, she kind of like, she has to make light of it too, because like it's difficult to see him in a different light. The thing with enemies to lovers is you have to kind of like force them to see each other in a different light, because they're so fixed. They're so certain that they know the other person. And then as soon as they get new information, they want to immediately find a way to like not think about it. And so this kind of becomes the way that she can kind of like avoid that and turn it into a little bit of a game. But I do think that she would have like some feelings and thoughts about that, considering her past. And I didn't really get to put that into the book, but it's something that's like in my head. I'm like, I might have to do a bonus chapter about this.
Yeah, you
Because
Okay.
I can see her having a conversation with them about it.
But no, it's really true enemies to lovers. Like for a long part of this book, it is very much true, which I enjoyed thoroughly. Your author's note towards the end talks about how like thanks to all my family, but like please don't ever read this book because it's like the deepest, darkest piece of my soul that I've ever published. And then you recently had a social media either interview or something where you're like, guys, I told you not to read it. Like, what's going on? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I made a video jokingly when I was getting ready to publish this book, and my family is so amazing and they're so supportive. And it's like having I have a very big Irish Catholic family, second generation in this country. Like everybody is always like just very supportive, and they will be telling everybody about my books, like having my own personal, very large street team out there, but like related to me. And so they've read all of my backlist, and my backlist does have spice. It does not have this kind of spice. Like it gets a little crazy in some of those books, but like not even close to like this level. And so when I was writing it, I was talking to my sisters and I was like, do you think that there's something I could say that would get mom to like not read it? And all of my friends were like, well, just give her like a redacted copy or whatever. And I was like, look, she reads everything on Kindle. And if I tell her, like my sister was like, if you tell her not to, she's just going to read it harder because my mom is married. And so I was like, yeah, I can't do that. I was like, but I do think I could tell her that it's like so violent that I don't think that she would like it, which is actually true. She like really does not like super violent things. I was like, this is pretty dark and violent. I don't think you would like it. And I was hoping that would be enough. But then like also like my aunts started following me on social media and stuff. And I was like, get out of here. No. Like just, I need to be weird on the internet and I need you guys to not be a part of it. My cousins and everything, I'm fine. Like everybody who I'm like in generation with, they get it. So it's like, whatever. But my aunts and uncles and stuff like following me on social media and out regularly removing them. And so before this came out, I did a video where I basically said like, hey, I really appreciate how much everybody has supported me, but I want to be able to make eye contact with you at the next family event. So maybe just don't read this one. And they were so disobedient, all of them. My mom didn't. So my mom did read it and did not tell me. So I didn't think that she had read it. And then when I was in the midst of all of my trad auctions and everything, the first big preempt that came through. So a preempt is essentially when a publisher tries to make like a large time limited offer to get you to avoid auction, essentially. And so my mom happened to come over the one day, like right after I got one. I was like shaking. It's like so shocked. And I was like telling her about it or whatever. And then she was like, in the most supportive way, was like, for one book, like, and I was like, Mom, like every single time I got an offer, she would say the same thing. And I was like, Mom. And she, and we were like talking about it. And she was just like, so like shocked with me that she was like, she said something about the end. And I was like, what did you say? Like, she said something about like the twist with Adia. And I was like, did you read the book? And she was like, yeah, I read it a while ago. And she's like, I thought you were joking. And I was like, oh, what do you mean you thought I was joking? And I was laughing and I posted this thing about my aunt sending me a card. My aunt lives in France. And she sent me a card about how excited they were that it was going to be translated into French because then they can brag better to their French friends. And that she did read the book and loved it in spite of. And then she put in parentheses because of your video. And I was like, excuse you? And then in the comments, I don't know if anybody saw this, but in the comments, my sister says, Mom actually read it twice. And I was like, how do you guys know this? And how did you like let me not know this? They're the worst. They're the fired as sisters. So yeah, it's been an interesting experience. I'm like, the good news is that nobody really talks to me about it. So that's for the best, honestly. So
So you can kind of make eye contact, like, don't.
yeah. And just sort of like, I actually did a video a while ago about how long it took me to be able to make eye contact with my mom after she read each of the books in like my original like series. And I was like, this one was okay. Like it was like a week, and then by the time we got to the fourth one, I was like, yeah, that took a little bit.
That's hilarious. So, because your book has exploded in popularity, if it became a TV series or a movie, who would your dream cast be?
I'm so bad at this because I'm so old, and I don't know.
You are not old.
Cool. I don't know anyone who's cool
say that.
anymore.
No,
I'm not. I just like don't. I'm not as like familiar with like who the hot young actors
But these people are in their 30s. They're in their 30s, so they would be like our actors that we grew up with.
There are
so
actors.
true. I don't even know who I would want to like play them. I really feel like Harlow needs to have like some serious like femme fatale kind of energy. I feel like she I don't even know like who I would pick, honestly. It's so hard to like imagine people as them, it
would be such a good movie though. Oh my God, it'd be such a good movie. It's so visually, there's so much visual drama to this book. The whole time I was like, this has to be a series. And actually it would be better as a series because it's a long book. And I feel like if you made it a movie, it would really do the whole story a disservice, because I think you like in an hour and a half, you would get this major twist. And I feel like it wouldn't have been long enough. Like you wouldn't have appreciated the drama and like the pain and the suffering that these characters have gone through and the level of depth of the storytelling there. So like it needs to be like a 6-part series or something, because
where
it just
each
doesn't
episode's like
care.
2 hours long, basically.
I've always said that I feel like when it comes to book adaptations, like, and especially this one because it's so long and complicated, like I would really love for it to be a series just because I feel like I would want to be able to do it justice. And I would definitely want there to be like the definitive, like we're following this plot. So there's a start point and an end point, not like, going on and on forever. But I just like love the idea of like being able to take the time to like really tell all these different parts of the story and bring it together, because I do think it would be amazing. I think it would be so cool as a show.
I mean, the first episode is like, in my mind, there's a lot of people you have to introduce. And then there's a lot of things that Harlow's doing like on the side that we have to introduce. We have to set up the world. Like I just feel like that takes an hour by itself right out of the gate. Just trying to get us to know what the heck's going on here is going to take some time and to really establish all of the elements here of what this world is and what's happening. But I feel like I feel like a limited series of 8 episodes or something like that would be so much better than like a Netflix one-time movie. I don't know that you could really get the level of
so much.
Yeah.
I just think it wouldn't land the same way as a movie. Yeah, unless it was like you said, like super long, or they broke it up into like Twilight, like you break it up into 2 movies or whatever. That's like 5 hours or something.
Or it can be like Stranger Things, where literally every single episode of a 10-episode season is like 2 hours long. So you're getting like
or Game of Thrones,
you're getting like 20 hours.
Yeah, sure enough. Yeah, I could definitely see like a series. I think it would be amazing. That would be like the dream. I'm crossing my fingers. Maybe it'll be like popular enough that can happen.
Yes.
So I think so. I have a question about Easter eggs. So I know you've kind of like pointed to a few of them as you've talked through it. Are there like any Easter eggs that you're surprised nobody's mentioned to you that you deliberately like put in certain places, or like things like that you're like, oh, I thought for sure somebody would have already like mentioned that or talked to, or asked me about it and nobody has? Is there anything like that?
Good question. Let me think. Well, I always have, in all of my stories, I always have Easter eggs to my other books, or sometimes to my friends' books as well. So the names of the bars in this are all Easter eggs to other books that I've written.
That's awesome.
And I always do stuff like that where I have like nods to different books. So in the Lost God series, the 2 Cece and her guardian tell these stories before bed, and one of the stories that they tell in the first book is kind of a nod to Song of the Darkwood. It's like the story that they're telling in this thing. So then later when people were reading Song of the Darkwood, they were like, wait, you know, so it's really funny. But so Raining Star Bar is a reference to the Lost God series and this one story that they tell. Guardian's Crossing is also a reference to the Lost God series. Heartless Haven and Living Nightmare are both references to the Song of the Darkwood world. They're the
So cool.
They're the books that are later in the series. So I'm working on Ballad of the Heartless right now, and the next book is Symphony of Nightmares. So those are both nods to that as well. So yeah, so I always have some sort of something in there. And I'm surprised that I didn't get more comments on it from readers who've like read like the backlist books, the big, especially Raining Star Bar. I was like, that one has got to be like the most obvious, I think. But nobody said anything about that one. The other ones they did in the city, but yeah. And I think like a lot of my readers are looking for it now too. So like they're usually like on top of it when they see one of them. So yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Looking back when I was reading, because I did read this really quickly, like you planted, especially with Adia, like when she was in that the very first dinner, and you see her, she's standing by the window, and then she like doesn't interact with anyone, and like there are little moments like that I had to like really think back. I'm like, oh wait, no, you planted that there. It was just really thoughtful, and like I want to do a second read because I know going through a second read, I'm gonna find so much more stuff that you sneakily planted being at the end, and like being blindsided by all of this stuff.
Yeah. And I've had a lot of readers who read a second time and they're like, this is crazy. I cannot believe that I missed this. Like, but in that opening scene, you know that Adia's magic is about illusion. So she can also essentially make herself invisible if she wants to, or make herself look like someone else. Like she can do all of this. She's very good at it. She has a lot of like, she's good at wielding this strength, which like not everybody is that good at wielding their blessing. And she's pretty efficient and pretty good at it. So you don't know exactly, like because of that, you don't know that you could trust other people's eyes as much either. And then in that scene, Harlow is saying, our parents are very happy to like benefit from her sacrifice, but they don't want to look at it. And so you're not totally surprised that no one is looking at her. We know Rafe doesn't care about her. We know that her parents don't want to have to look at it. So like, that's not a surprise. What I thought might tip people off is the fact that Kellen doesn't address it. And I was like, because like but we don't know him as well in that scene to do it. So late, like as people got more context for him, I was a little bit worried that somebody might be like, why didn't he say anything? Because he's also very observant and everything. So I was a little worried about that. That was like the only thing from like the opening scene. But then there were like a couple other things. But because Harlow is directing the reader's attention and she is not looking for that to be the case, we miss a lot of things. Like Adia doesn't have an aura. She's the only character who has a blessing who doesn't have an aura. And Harlow never talks about it. In everyone else, she mentions it at least a little bit. Because she's always reading, like again, as someone with CPTSD, she's always reading someone's temperament or mood by what's going on. But she is noticing a lot of stuff about how upset Adia is and never noticing anything about her aura, which I was like, surely someone will pick up on this part. And no one said anything about it.
I didn't either.
So
I totally didn't notice that.
Yeah. So
I'm very excited for my reread now. Because I'm like,
for sure.
I kind of like see all the things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And who doesn't want to read that space scene again? Because let me tell you, I do. I was like, what?
Well, everybody is like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to reread an audio. Like now that it's going to be coming out.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Because I am primarily an audio reader at this point. So yeah.
Me too. Honestly, I sometimes I'll flip back and forth depending on what I'm doing, but I love my audiobook since having my son. I've found audiobooks to be a way to actually chip away at my TBR without having like it keep piling and piling up. And when you announced your voice actors, I was so excited. Can you, I know we are going to kind of talk a little bit more about this with, I think Danny had that lined up for Down the Rabbit Hole, but can you kind of talk to us about like the process of having your having the audiobook actors picked out, voice actors picked out, and that whole thing?
Yeah. So because I listen to audio and that's like how I primarily like read these days, I totally get it. All of my friends who have like young kids or babies are always like on audio and they're always like, I'm so sorry I haven't read your book yet. I'm like, it's fine. It's not on audio yet. So like, I get it, you know? So I listen to so many audiobooks that I'm always like hearing new narrators and being like, oh, what character would this person be good for? Like, and so like, if I'm listening to an audiobook where I'm like, oh, this person is so good. Like I'll put them and I have like a note in my phone notes where I'll be like, oh, I think they could be good for this character or this character. Cause I know like the next like 5 books that I'm writing or whatever, and a little bit about the characters. So I knew that I wanted someone who had a slightly like more mature voice to do Harlow. And I'm a huge fan of Laura Horowitz. I think she's so talented, but I also think she has the right sense of humor. And I feel like sometimes it's hard with characters who have humor because you want to make sure that whoever you're casting is going to understand like the sarcasm or like this like snarkiness. And I've listened to quite a few books that she's done because obviously she's sort of like the queen of romantic narration right now. She's so good. And she also just has such a great sense of humor. She just posted a video the other day of reading like the credits of the book, and I was like laughing out loud with how she was doing it. And she's like, that doesn't sound right. And I think she's going to be so great. And she was like my top pick. So I was thrilled when they announced, like, it's always like you're sort of like on the edge of your seat. I always know who I think would work. And usually what I do is I'll send my production team like my top 3 picks for each role. And I know when I send them that I'm taking a big swing. Like with this one, I was like, this is a big swing. I have no idea if this is going to work. But you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. And I did have to wait like quite a bit before they got back to me. But when they finally got back to me, I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I did not think I was going to get lucky enough to get both of them because Anthony Pomini is going to be reading for Henry, and he is so good. I also just feel like he's going to do such a good job.
Yeah.
He has
I'm so
the exact right voice and everything. And I'm very picky about which.
We're big Kingfisher fans, right?
I'm so picky about male narrators. I love so many female narrators. Like I have a huge list of female narrators. My list of male narrators is so short. I'm like, there's no offense to all of them. It's just like I do sometimes get annoyed when men speak, and so it has to be like a very specific kind of voice for me to be like, okay, I can relax and listen to it.
And during those spicy scenes, he talks a lot. So it needs to be a good narrator.
That's right. Yeah.
Agree.
Because he talks a lot.
Yeah. And you just need somebody who's going to understand the assignment and like have the right tone to it. And I feel like he really gets it. And I cannot even tell you, I've had the greatest luck with my narrators for all of my books. My whole backlist is on audio. And I had even my first series, like I do not know how I got so lucky. But I have like the most amazing narrators and they did such a good job. And because it was recorded when the series was complete, they kind of went from start to finish with the whole thing. So they were really like locked in on the characters. And I think it like, they didn't have to come back to it after a year and like remember all the stuff about the character. Like they were just like in the zone. And because they got to follow the whole story from start to finish, I think like the outcome is just like so fantastic. Like they're so good. And then in A Legacy of Stars, we have Emily Wuzeller, who's phenomenal, and James Fooey, who is like absolutely a male narrator who understood the assignment. Because I got to the spicy scenes in that, and I was like literally like hiding under my covers. I was like, I'm blushing. I think he was so good. And yeah, I've been like so fortunate, and I'm like, I don't know what great cosmic blessing has gotten me like just some of the most like phenomenal narrators, but I have gotten like my top picks almost every single time, I think. So at this point, so crossing my fingers it stays that way.
I'm
Yeah,
very
so
excited. Can you? Oh, sorry.
I was going to just say for everyone listening, The Poisoned Daughter on audio starring narrated by Laura Horowitz and Anthony Palmini. And some of us who are audiobook girlies know Anthony Palmini as Kingfisher also, and his voice is phenomenal. So I really think him as Henry is just going to bring another level of depth to him. And that's what I actually really love about audiobooks is like, I'm a Kindle girly. I usually read everything in my Kindle, but there is, when you have the right team, the right narration duet, which I think you have just an incredible two narrators. They're just fantastic. I think they're going to bring this extra level of completeness to the book. Like the immersive experience, like when I go to do a reread, I'm literally waiting until August 18th to do my reread because I want to do my reread with the audio. So the audio comes out August 18th. I want to reread it with the audio. I want the full immersive experience because I know Laura and Anthony are going to like take me there. Like I'm going to be with Harlow and Henry the whole journey, and just Laura's ability and Palmini's ability too to like differentiate their voices so you know right away who is coming in and talking. And I think Lauren's going to do such a tremendous job with the level of depth of what Harlow's going through and the emotion that's tied to that. I'm so looking forward to hearing how she takes those characters and really like just all the twists and turns. I think they're just going to be fantastic.
Me too.
So I'm so excited to hear that.
Yeah. And you're so right. It does bring like a different level. Like the performance really brings a different level of emotion. And with my first series, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to listen to this or not, because as an author, it's like really difficult to read your own work once it's been published, because all you can see is like all the stuff that you would like fix about it. And I'm such a different writer now than I was when I first started. But I sent a thank you to the narrators who did my first series, because I was like, it felt like I wrote that series for myself. And when you publish, whatever you publish, it starts belonging to readers and it doesn't really belong to you anymore. And they bring all of their own stuff with it and kind of project all of their own things onto it. And that can be like really hard. It was like one of the hardest things for me when I was first starting out. But this felt like getting my books back, because it was sort of like the performance was just removed enough that I could actually enjoy it. And I wasn't like thinking, there were a couple of spots where I was like, oh, Sheila, like you could have done that better. But because the performance was so compelling and so like beautiful, I was like in it, you know, and I was like, I have read this book so many times. There's a picture of me in one of my highlights on my stories on Instagram where I'm crying at the end of my audiobook. At the end of my own audiobook, that is a book that I had probably read like 500 times at that point. And it just felt like, who would write this? And it was like so good. And I was like, for me to feel that, and that's what I like said to them, is like, it really felt like I was like gifted my own stories back. And they just did such a good job of like delivering this, that it was so much more emotional. And there were scenes that I was not thinking of as like, I read them on page as like being super emotional, that were like a lot more emotional in like the actual like the audiobook.
Because you hear the lines being delivered, like there's the level of depth to that, the way it's spoken. And I have a question on that. So are all your other books available on Kindle Unlimited as well? Are they, can you find them there?
Okay. This is on Kindle Unlimited and on audio. Okay. So, and that's a lot of them. I always tell people, if you're like a person who uses Libby, like check your Libby, because you might have them at your library. They're also on Spotify, or any of the platforms. Yeah.
Awesome. I know I'll be reading them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes. And listening, because I need to fill in. So
they're so great. Yeah. Yeah. I'm so biased, but like, I was like, I literally, I think like even with like the first books that I did with my producer for the Lost God series, I think he was sort of like trying to like manage my expectations, and he was like, we'll try. And like when they all said yes, I was like
fangirling. Oh
yeah, I was freaking out, and I could tell that even he was like shocked. So like it turns out when you offer people 4 books of work, they're like, yeah, okay, I'll take it. I was like, it's 4 books of guaranteed work, so it does make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's awesome.
All right. So now we're moving into our Down the Rabbit Hole segment. And this week, I wanted to really talk about, because we've talked about it on like a higher level, but Michelle and I haven't been through this personally. And the fact that you have relatively recently, Sheila, I thought would be a really good down the rabbit hole opportunity with our guest author. So can you tell us a little bit about how you originally released The Poisoned Daughter and kind of how we are here now with Zando picking it up, with the fantastic audio narrators you have now, with the re-release of the Sprayed Edges, by the way, for everyone listening, you can get your physical copy of this book. It's re-releasing August 18th through Zando. And that's also when the audio drops. Right now, it's still available on Kindle Unlimited for you to read. However, you can't get a physical copy in stores until August 18th. Can you tell us a little bit about the track to traditional publishing and what that was like for you as an author, and maybe some like behind the scenes elements that maybe authors who are kind of going through it or have never been through it might not realize that exist, or maybe normal things that you were like, I didn't know how to navigate this, and now I've learned.
Yeah. So years ago, before I ever released any books, I had been writing and querying kind of the traditional way. So I was querying with Song of the Darkwood, which is technically out an indie right now. And I chose that one because it fits into the format of what traditional publishing prefers. It's a little shorter. So it's about 121,000 words, which for normal people is about 380 pages or so. So for a romantic book, relatively concise comparative to
short for romantic.
Yeah. So and that's something that Trad tends to like, is a book that is a little bit shorter because shorter books are more profitable. And so I was querying with that originally, and I had like quite a few near misses. And at the same time, I was prepping to release the Lost God series, which is my first series. And it turns out that that's not the best time to do that. Like the best time to be told no, like roughly 60 times in a row, is not right before you're trying to feel confident enough to release the book.
No.
I really miscalculated a little bit, because in my head, it made sense. And I was like, well, querying takes a long time. So, and I knew with the Lost God series that would be like an uphill.
Wait, hold on. Querying. What is that for those who have never done?
Sorry. Yeah.
Way back.
Okay.
Way
so
back.
For anybody who has never like understood the traditional publishing process, what you typically do is you would write a book, you would try to edit it to the best of your ability and get it as clean as possible and into like kind of the most final format you can. So that might be stuff like having critique partners, which are other writers who can kind of kindly, constructively critique your work and help you like make the story, I always say, more into what your initial vision for it was. So like, are you delivering on what you wanted to? And if you're having trouble, sometimes they can mirror things back to you to help you like make the story a little more concise. And so theoretically, you have it as far along as you can get it yourself. And then you would do what's called querying, where you send a query letter, which is typically sort of like an intro to your book. So I think the one for Song of the Darkwood was something like, Dear Agent. And the idea behind it is to get an agent to represent your work. So they'll take it and then pitch it to a publisher, and they will probably use something similar to what you use to pitch them. So it might be something like, Dear Agent, I've attached my 120,000 word gothic romantasy Song of the Darkwood, which is like a Dark Red Riding Hood meets Hades and Persephone. And I thought it would be a good fit for you because you're looking for dark fairy tale retellings and feminine rage, whatever. Something from, usually agents have like a list of things that they're looking for. And then is usually the blurb for the book, which is like my back cover blurb for Song of the Darkwood now. And then at the end, you might talk about some of the themes that are particularly prevalent to what's going on in the world today, whatever. And you usually attach like the first, I'm not joking when I say it's usually like the first 10 pages, which feels like nothing. It's not even a full chapter often, like, which feels horrible. My strong preference is when you can at least include like one full chapter, because I just feel like when you're stopping in the middle of a chapter, that's just not how you, as an author, that's like not how you structure things. So I think for me, I I was doing this whole process and hoping to get an agent. And I thought it made sense because it tends to take a long time. Agents get a lot of submissions on a regular basis and they have to read them all, and it takes a long time. And so I was like, well, it's probably going to take like, a good 6 months or something. So I'd started. And in the meantime, I was like doing all this stuff to prepare to publish the Lost God series, which I had already written. It was complete. And I was just kind of in the process of editing the final 2 books in it. And so I was doing all of that. I finally kind of got to the place where I realized that I didn't really think that I wanted to go through that process because it's so much effort on the front end of trying to convince people that your idea is good before you ever get to try to like pitch it to readers. And I am chronically ill. I worked full time at the time, and I was like, this is not how I want to be spending my time. Like I just want to put my books out there, and I don't want to try to convince the industry to see things my way. I just want to like talk directly to readers and hope that they like the story. And so I published the Lost God series, and it did like fairly well. Like I think for someone who had no idea what they were doing, like I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. And I think in the grand scheme of things, it did pretty well for being very clueless and having not a lot of time and energy to do promotion. I didn't run ads. I didn't do anything like that. I really kind of relied on a small but mighty street team, and just my peers like giving me advice on different things. And it is really hard, I think, when you are chronically ill to be in that space, because especially with social media, there's kind of this drive to just go, go, go always. And so I really kind of had decided at that point that I thought that if I was ever going to go into trad, I would have to do it from a place of strength. I didn't think that I could go in and like be like trying to convince everybody on the front end, and then also convince everybody once I like my agents taking me to publishers. I kind of saw that the industry had changed a lot in the few years that I had been paying attention, and that I didn't really want to go in unless I felt like I could have some measure of control. And the only way to do that is to like have a proven concept, basically. So I wasn't really publishing with the intention to go trad. But I knew that if the right opportunity came up, I would definitely consider it. So 7 books later, I published The Poison Daughter. And I had a feeling about The Poison Daughter before, like even when I first started writing it, it felt different to me. And at the same time, it is 235,000 words, which is about twice as long as traditional publishers would prefer. And so I also knew that I couldn't have gone in on the front end. Like I would have been laughed right out of Query Manager, which is where you like submit all of these queries, because they would have just not read it at all once they saw how long it was. I'm positive. Like I know enough about the industry to know that they wouldn't have even looked at my letter. So I was like, okay, if this is the one, like it's gonna have to. There's no way that I can query it. It's just not gonna happen. Right. So I just put it out, and it did have my strongest launch yet, but also we're 7 books.
When you say that, hold on, sorry, just going back to my own like sanity. You say you just put it out. So is this like you just click a button on Amazon and it just goes? Like what does that mean? You put it out?
Yeah. So usually I run like a little bit of a promotional campaign leading up to it on social media, and I will open up an ARC team. And like I said, I have a street team. It's small, but a great group of readers. And typically, I don't know, about 3 to 4 weeks before the book comes out, you send out ARCs. So that's advanced reader copies. You hope that readers will read it and be like so excited and posting about it and talking about it on social media. And that did happen. Like I definitely felt like it was different.
We got an email. We got an email. That's how I knew about your book. That's how I went to go read it. I saw the blurb and I was like, damn, that sounds fucking great. I want to go read that immediately. So I went and downloaded it. And like we have a thing where I'm like, I will wait until Michelle either reads it or because I'm always a faster one of us. And I'll start looking through because we get a lot of emails, like tons and tons of people that are interested. And we just frankly, there's no way we can read that many books. We can't do it. So we have to be like selective in which ones. So like your blurbs work clearly because I like read it. And then whenever someone reached out a couple months later, it was like, hey, did you ever get a chance to read it? You know, we don't have the physical books anymore, but I was like, I want to get it. I want to interview Sheila immediately because Sheila available. I would like to interview her. I loved it. Blah, blah, blah. I was like,
Oh my God.
so excited. Yeah.
Yeah.
It worked. It totally works.
Yeah. And it was funny because that's also what we used when we went on submission as well, is basically almost verbatim my blurb. So I was like, nailed it. Finally, it took 7 books, but I finally did it. And I do think you get better at, like, it's 2 different types of writing. Like, the writing that you use when you're writing the book is one thing, but marketing writing where you're trying to like hook people really quickly, it is so hard to write a blurb because it's so concise. I think they said after like 150 words, people stop paying attention. So you really need to find a way to like hook people very quickly, but you also have to give them enough context for them to understand like that they're getting hooked. So, so I basically, I ran the ARC campaign. What was funny about this one is that I had less people posting during because everybody was so, I think, like sucked in. And like you said, Michelle, it's like they couldn't put it down. So I was like, it was really quiet for a while. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, does everybody hate it? Like, I was like, I felt so confident when I was sending it out because I was like, I am so confident in this book and I don't care if anybody doesn't like it. Like, I love it. And and then it was like crickets, and I was like, oh no, did it like not land? And it was because everybody was like so sucked in, and then like they all started like finishing and like being like, what just happened? Like, because I have a Discord server, and so people will often react in there, or like, you know, that's for emotional support. You know, all the things that we do as readers when we're reading stuff together. And so, I was like, oh God, like, did they hate it? But it went really well. And then in the first month, it did like better than any of my other books had done. Which when Song came out, Song did really well and it went to bestseller, and it was like it really kind of like blew up a little bit. But it was like a mini viral moment. And this kind of, it started strong. And then in November, it got a little stronger. And then in December, it just absolutely like started to take off. And by the time like we got into the new year, it was like crazy. So I had received an audio offer like 3 days after the book came out, like almost immediately, which is nuts. And so I reached out to the company. It was not from the company that had done my previous books. So I reached out to the company that had done my previous books, and I was like, hey, I got this offer. I wasn't sure. I was going to pitch it to you, but I just didn't think I would have to pitch it this quickly. And so, and hilariously, they were not interested because it was a standalone and they prefer to do series. And I was like, well, man, it's on below a lifetime, guys.
Yeah, literally.
It worked out for the best because I kind of thought about it, and my one friend was like, well, do you want to try to leverage that into getting an agent? Because then you can have somebody kind of negotiate some of this stuff for you. And that's just kind of on the tipping point.
Hold on. You have 7 books, and at this point, we still don't have an agent. This is your first now. So Poison Daughter is the first agent experience. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a great down the rabbit hole segment. I'm really glad we chose this topic. Very helpful for those who are listening who think like, oh, you know, she's on her 7th book naturally. She's had an agent the whole time. This is interesting. Keep going.
No. And the other thing is, I would always say, like, I did not have an agent, but I knew a lot about the industry, and I had a lot of peers who like shared their experiences with me. And I also always work with a lawyer for your contracts. I worked with a lawyer before this. So I did not have an agent, but I did have a lawyer. And do not sign any contracts without having a lawyer look at them. And that is like some of the biggest advice I will give everybody. Even if you're like, oh my gosh, I can't afford this, you can join Ally, which is the Alliance of Independent Authors, and they have a contract review in their membership. So you can have your standard contracts reviewed in there, and they will tell you which clauses and stuff to skip over. Or there are lots of communities of authors who are pretty robust and often have like old conversations about different things with different publishers, and you can kind of get a feel for how they've kind of worked through, like who they've worked with to kind of negotiate different contracts without having agents. So you can kind of get good resources from that as well. So that is advice that I would give to everyone, even if you're like on a budget. There are ways to do it on a budget. Yeah. I was fortunate to have a friend who is very lovely and helpful and helped me with all of this. So all of those were negotiated with a lawyer. And then I was kind of like, it would be nice because I was kind of getting to the point where I was getting BookBox opportunities and stuff like that, even for like my backlist books, where I was like, it would be really nice to have somebody who was handling this stuff, because I've kind of gotten to the point at that point where I was like, I am a little burned out on contract review. Like I feel like, and my lawyer was like laughing, because usually what happens is I will get a contract and I will mark it up and then send it to her. And she's like, yep, you nailed it. This is all the thing I would have picked out. And she'll like help me reword things or whatever. But I was like, I'm glad that I'm an expert now, but I would rather spend my time doing other things. And so I used those offers to sort of like pitch to agents. So I queried again. Querying when you have a book that's doing well is a little bit of a different thing, because you are sharing things about the book, but you're also talking about like the success that you've had so far. So it's a little different in that you're talking about how long the book has been out, how it's doing, and kind of what offers you have so far, along with your like initial pitch and everything. So I queried a couple of agents, and I would say if you're in that scenario, typically if you're emailing in the subject line, you would say offer in hand or offer received, so that they know that you're coming in with business, because that always makes you a little more appealing. And so I had 3 agents right away who replied and requested my full manuscript. So I sent that over. And then it's like the waiting game. And you just wait and wait and wait. So I sent that up, and in the meantime, the book just kind of kept growing. And in the beginning of December, I got my first foreign rights offer, and that was the first time I ever have received a foreign rights offer for any of my books. And so I'd gotten one request from a Spanish publisher, and it was the nicest rejection I've ever received, because she basically said, I love the book. And she clearly read it. She read it in like a weekend. I'd sent it to her the one day, and she read it really fast. And I was like, that's crazy that she read that. But she was like, the whole first paragraph was about how much she loved the book. And then the second paragraph was basically like, they're a new adult imprint. And she's like, it's a little too mature and dark and sexy for our imprint. But like, I loved it so much, and it's breaking my heart that I can't offer on it. It's just not the right fit. And I was like, no, I was like, this is literally the nicest rejection I've ever received. So I'll live with it. And I was disappointed, but I was like, it's okay. And I was actually at a meeting for my day job where I work with one of my critique partners. And so I was like telling her about it. And we were like both like so bummed. And then I got to the airport to fly home, and I had another email from a German publisher with an offer. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, it's happening. So then I nudged all of the agents who had my work and said, essentially, like, I have this offer. And then in the same week, I started getting other offers. So I must have crossed some like invisible threshold. I don't remember exactly what it was, but something that let them feel like it was like international publishers were noticing. And so I nudged the agents and said, like, hey, I got this other offer. Just kind of like, pay attention to me. And, of course. And then I did get a reply from one of them who offered me representation and set up a meeting in January. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. So I was like, okay, we're going to meet in January, and we're going to like see if we're a good fit kind of thing, because you don't necessarily want to go sight unseen. You want to make sure that like you have a vision that aligns, and that they're on board with what you want to do, especially because I had every intention of staying hybrid in the long term. So I'm not really trying to be 100% traditionally published. My backlist still indie. And I wanted to make sure that whoever I worked with was on board with some things being traditionally published and some things being indie. Mm-hmm. So over Christmas, the book like really started blowing up. And by the time everybody was back in the office from publishing in like the first week of January, I started getting all these requests from agents to have meetings. So not the agents that I had pitched, but other agents who had
other ones. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then in the meantime, got a bunch of other international offers, and I started having all these emails coming in. I was like, I already keep a spreadsheet to keep track of everything. And I was like, okay. I was like, this is getting a little out of hand. And so in the first like 2 weeks of January, I think I had something like 7 agent meetings. And And I still have a day job at this point. So it was a lot. And I had a feeling when I met my agent, it was Alyssa Morris, who was at Trellis. And I just had a feeling when I met her, and I was not really expecting to, because she is a newer agent, and I thought that I would really want somebody who was like a lot more experienced, but we just hit it off, and I had a really good feeling about her. And that's like a whole other conversation about like how to assess agents and stuff, and that's something I'd like love to talk about at length. But and I think it's really personal, and I think you have to click with the person. You have to have the right personality and feel like they have a vision that goes along with yours. And I felt really strongly about her, and basically I accepted on Friday, I think. And then on Monday, like the next Monday we met, so that's like the third week of January, we met for the first time and kind of discussed strategy, and then went out on sub on Wednesday of that week in the US and Germany and Spain. So we were out like 3 different places at once, and we were prepping for the UK, and it was really fast. And that is like a super unique experience. It's not like that. It's because the book was like super viral, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger. Even like over those weeks, it just kind of kept growing and growing. And we had the US auction the first week of February, which like was crazy. So what happens before that is I met with all of the publishers who were interested in bidding, so that I could get a feel for them and have a conversation with them about like their vision for the book. And it's things like, do they want to edit it? Do they want it to change the cover? Do they, trying to think of other kinds of things. What kind of marketing plan do they have? So it was a lot of meetings, like a lot. And a lot
That's
of
probably also like, what are their capabilities, like marketing wise? How much are they going to put towards it? How are they going to help you grow and all that, like capability of the publisher itself? Because that makes sense to me. If you're going to do the indie thing and then somebody wants to pick it up, they better be like capable of really doing something with it or be really passionate about it. Otherwise, it's like, am I just going to be one of your new releases that's kind of just part of the month of whatever and not really celebrated or put forward? Yeah.
And I think that a thing that I've seen, not across the board, but a little bit when we have these indie pickups, is that the publishers sort of like sit back because they're like, well, this book already has a fandom and it's already established, and like we can just kind of set it and forget it kind of thing. But that's not how it works. Like you need to just keep like investing, and you need to
keep the momentum
going. In my opinion,
the
the value of a publisher is that they can reach people that you haven't reached already.
Right.
And I think that it's really important for them to realize that that's like value that they can add. And so for me, I was really looking at like 2 things, which are marketing. So what do they see as their marketing plan? Because there are certain things as an indie that I can't do. I can, email booksellers, but I can't do bookseller events and stuff like that. I don't have the same access to like industry things that publishers do. And so they have greater access on that side of things. And that can be hugely impactful because, I mean, having something like a presence with Barnes & Noble is a huge deal in the US. Like that is a lot of books that they can move. And so they have this ability to work this angle of kind of reaching these marketing avenues that I might not be able to myself. So even my announcement for the book was in People magazine. Like that's probably not something I could have done myself, unfortunately. And I think like, it's all of that stuff of being able to kind of like reach these kind of traditional media outlets that maybe indies can't do as easily. And also the distribution, which is the biggest struggle for indies. So internationally, it's so hard. It's so much harder. In the US, it's a little bit easier, but just since the Poison Daughter came out, there have been so many issues with Amazon and Ingram Spark, which is the other print on demand company. So I knew like that was such an opportunity so I wanted to see how they answered those questions.
Yeah.
And then the biggest thing for me was that I wanted to keep my ebook, right? And that is such a sticking point for most publishers. But in my opinion, and I will say that I will die on this hill, that publishers don't do anything with the digital rights when they have them. They mark the ebook up to like $15 to try to push people to buy the print copy. But we know that you can't treat print and digital readers as if they're the same. And a lot of your new readers, especially when you're talking about a debut, like I know this is my 7th book, but for trad purposes, this is my debut. When you're talking about a debut, you really want to make the barrier to entry to read it as low as possible. And that's part of the reason why my book was so successful historically have been so successful on Kindle Unlimited, because it's very easy to get people to try something when they're subscribed and they're not, theoretically, girl math, you're not paying anything. You're just reading it,
I use that math every day.
Exactly. And I think like it does work out, because readers will take a chance on authors that they don't know when the barrier to entry is really low. And then I've seen it repeatedly. They will go out and buy the audio. Or buy the print copy. Because,
or I need to have the physical copy now, because I want my shelf trophy.
I need my trophy.
I already read it, and I want this straight edge fancy edition. I'll pay more for it because I already read it and I already know that I love it. And therefore, I want the fancier, nicer. That's why I'm also waiting. That's why I was kind of okay with not getting the original release, because now the fancy Zando one is the one I want anyway. I'm like really excited about that.
I know.
I'm really excited for the fancy spray nudges and all of that. So it totally worked. Gotta
so
for one of us. So that's what happened. Yeah,
exactly. So I knew that was going to be like a big sticking point as well. So that was like all taken into consideration with like the offers that we've received at auction. It was like the most tense day of my entire life. Climbing the walls.
Is it virtual? Like going somewhere? Or like how does that work?
Yeah, so I was home, and my my agent was at her office in New York. And it's basically the way we did it is like a best bids auction. So basically we told them that all bids had to be in by I think 11 a.m. and or 10 a.m. and the top 4 would move on to the second round and then have the opportunity to make like their best offer, essentially. So, so I was actually running late. I had an appointment that morning and I was running late. So I was driving home when my agent FaceTimed me, and she was like, "You need to pull over." And I was like, and so I was like, "Oh boy." And so I pulled over, and she kind of went through and she was like reading them, and like, it was so crazy because it was the first round and it was already way more than I was expecting. And so she got to the top 4.
Amazing.
And it was a pretty big spread, and they were all offering on slightly different things, because some were offering partial rights, some were offering just audio, some were offering for 2 books, which I'm like, what are we doing here? And which is fairly common. Like often they want to secure like the next book, because essentially assuming the book does well, they're getting it at a discount, So so we did that, and then I had to wait another like 2 hours for like the best bids to come in. So that's where my mom came in. I got home and my mom came over, and I like caught her up on everything. And again, she did her like for $1, like she does every time. And I'm like, Mom, God. But then she did the other thing that moms do, where they tell you about every living person that you've ever met and what their kids are up to and what jobs they're working now. And I was like, this is actually exactly what I needed. I just need this like constant chatter because I'm like so anxious, but it worked out and it went really well, obviously. And then in the midst of all of that, there was a lot of like international stuff going on. So we also had an auction. Well, I think there were actually technically auctions in like 15 different countries or something. It was crazy.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Not simultaneous, but there was a lot going on. And the US, the UK, and Germany are the 3 biggest book markets in the world. And they were kind of stacked up. So the US ended on Friday, and the UK and Germany ended on Tuesday of the following week. And so it was like a lot of information in a really short period of time and a lot of decision making. And then in amongst that, they're all trying to like make offers to try to like avoid the auction too. So we kept getting like interrupted by that too, and me being like, oh God, it's like really, really hard to like turn down somebody offering you like the most money you've ever been offered at once. And you're like, no, that's not. But I think you have to have a lot of patience in this whole process. And that's why you have an agent, is like they understand the industry really well. They are going to help you strategize. They're going to give you context for why they're saying not to take that money, and I think like even with the first, I really learned like with the first German offer that we got, it was a very strong offer and way more than I was expecting. And so when my agent said in there, my foreign rights agent, Allison said, this is why, I would suggest not doing it. Like, I really needed to trust her. And she's like, we can have a call if you want me to like walk you through it. And I was like, yeah, if you want me to say no to the most money anybody has ever offered me in a day, you're gonna need to hold my hand. Like, I can do it, and I'm very like logical. It's just I need somebody to like be like, it's gonna be okay. And that's why you have them, as like they're really like the business mind and the strategist, and their job is to understand the market really well and to understand each of these players and how they come into it, and to try to like get you the offer that matches what you're going for. So it required a lot of patience and a lot of like I don't know, like deep breathing, all of the anxious energy, but it was really good. And so once we agreed to that, then it's sort of like you have to figure out when you're republishing and what it's going to look like. And we knew we wanted to be a hardcover with the sprayed edges, because the indie version was like a little bit upgraded. Like, it had art on the case cover of Harlow floating on her back. Actually, it's the same art. So, but it will print
gorgeous. Yeah,
it will print so much nicer on their printers. I've been like blown. Like, they sent me ARC copies, and I'm like, the purple looks so much better. So beautiful. Not that I don't like my originals. It's just that print on demand printers are just not the same quality as like the professional, like the very high end, like high volume printers that publishers use. So
Sheila, if you wanted to send us art copies, like, we wouldn't be mad about it. I'm just
I have these for Imaginarium, which is an event I'm going to in a couple of weeks, but I'm trying to get them to send me more, because I'm like, you guys, so many people. Like, I have so many people I want to send art. When I'm like, this is the one downside, is I'm such a control freak, and I'm like, well, I would like to have roughly 500 arcs, so I can send them to everyone. And it's just,
we also want to buy them too, though. So it's kind of like, I want to buy them to support you.
Yeah.
And like this whole journey. So it's kind of like, I want it because I just want to see it and I want to hold the book. It's less about that than it is about like the transactional piece of it. But that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been like such a steep learning curve, but so great. And
you've been through a lot in a short amount of time.
Yes.
Very small amount of time.
Yeah. And I think like that too, like that is not the norm at all. Usually, like sometimes people are on submission for like months. That's like a much more typical experience. In this case, we were just very fortunate that it was going so viral at the time. And then the biggest surprise in all of this was the week after the US auction. It went to, it landed on the USA Today bestseller list, which I did not in a million years expect, and I did not expect it so much that I didn't even know it happened until about 2:00 in the afternoon. And I had already given notice at my day job, but I saw an email come in from my editor, and I was on a work call, and I just opened the email, and it was my editor Nicole at Thando congratulating me on making USA Today. And I was like, I thought that she accidentally sent it to like the wrong person, because Madeline Taylor's book had just come out, and I was like, is this for Maddie? Like, did she make the list? And so I was like very confused for a minute, and then I went to the website and just pulled it up, and I was like, and I started crying, and I just was so shocked. Yeah. And everybody was like, how did you do it? And I was like, I genuinely don't. I was like, I'm so flabbergasted. So it's, for anyone listening, it's very unusual for indies to make USA Today. It's almost impossible for them to make New York Times, although several have in recent years. It escapes me now.
I think this totally will. Yeah, I don't know how. Like, I think this totally will. I think the USA Today bestseller edition that has that on it, the one that's going to release, will be quickly replaced. That's also why I want to get this book, because I think the USA Today bestseller one is gonna be short lived, and I think they're gonna pull those and re-release with the New York Times bestseller, because I just am anticipating the success of this book because it was so incredible, and I think so many people will verbally continue to share that. Obviously, we're going to share it. It's been such an awesome read. I was instant 5-star plus for me. And I know Michelle, I texted her. She's like, "Oh, it's a 5-star." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Just
hands down.
immediately.
No question.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's just been like the craziest thing. And I think like so many people have been like, "How did you do it?" And I'm like, Like, I think, yeah, I mean, probably trauma. Like we can thank trauma. I also think that a lot of it, like people look at it and like you said, they see this book and they think it's like my first book, or, they kind of don't really have the vision. I'm like, well, this is also like the previous, 3 years of publishing and like slowly building an audience. And I think that's where it starts. Like you have to have the foundation, because a lot of times I think for indie authors, especially, there can be this focus on these like huge influencers, and it's not that they aren't helpful. I mean, they're incredibly helpful, and I'm like very, very grateful that like so many of them have read the book. But it really starts with like a lot of smaller, like more like average accounts who are just really excited, and they're us. They're all these girls who are like, "Oh my gosh, like I just read this book and like I can't get it out of my head," and like all authors are like readers first, and so I think for me, and especially in the age of AI and a lot of like same, I have like the most amazing Unhinged street team, and they are so funny. Like I'm like, it really truly cannot understate how important it is to have people who are passionate and creative and excited to like talk about books. So I think like it really kind of starts there. So yeah, so I'm super excited, and now it's re-releasing in August 18th in the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and in so crazy in 20 other countries in translations, which is insane.
Wow. Yeah.
So
amazing.
so far. So I'm really excited, and the translations will be like later. They're not all at the same time because it takes a little bit longer to do those, but over the next like year or so, we'll kind of see them come out in all of these different territories. So like very, very excited, and a lot of like unusual ones that I never would have expected. So I'm just incredibly grateful and really excited. And also, if you need more motivation, my birthday is August 20th. So my release week is also my birthday week. And it would be a great birthday present if you pre-ordered my book. And there are going to be pre-order incentives that are getting announced very soon. So so if you pre-order, keep your receipt.
Okay. Are those going to be pre-ordering through like a specific seller, or how?
I think it's through Zando website.
Zando has like a list of all the different places where you can get it.
I see it.
Yeah. So any of those.
Can we
places,
also pre-order from our indie bookstores too? Okay.
Yes, you can. Yeah. And again, keep your receipt wherever you decide to get your book from. Just keep your receipt. Is what I tell everybody. And I love supporting indies. So yeah, absolutely. Your indie bookstore that's local to you, or any of the retailers that you prefer.
Awesome. Do you have, following your release, or maybe before your release, do you have like a book tour coming up this year?
Where can we find you?
Maybe. Maybe keep your ears open over the next couple of weeks. And I will be, in terms of events, I will be at Imaginarium Book Festival, which is in Washington, D.C., the first week in June. So that's June 5th and 6th, I think. It's the Friday and Saturday of that first weekend in June. And then I will be at Miss Willa's Ever After in West Virginia. So that's Jennifer Lenarmentrout's bookstore. And it's a smaller like town festival, and that is in West Virginia. And that's September 25th to 27th, I think. So like late September. And then I'm thinking about, I have an indie release, the second book in my Song of the Darkwood series, and that is Interconnected Standalones. Ballad of the Heartless is coming out in October, and I'm thinking about doing like my own little indie tour. So I might try to do that as well. So if that is something that anyone would like to see, tell me what your local indie.
We would like you to come to Orlando to go to the New Romantics. We have Orlando's only romance bookstore.
New Romantics too.
You have to come.
Well, perfect.
Yeah.
You have to come.
That's fantastic. And if you want someone to interview you live and talk to you about it, we would also love
us.
to.
Yeah, I do. Oh my gosh. No, I'm crossing my fingers that I can make it happen, but I'm not like so exhausted. I'm hoping I can like keep my energy up. So yeah.
Yeah, you got a lot going on, which is freaking
Yeah.
fantastic. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying not to run myself too ragged. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being on the show, Sheila. We've had such a tremendous time with you. We have one more segment to kind of get you through, which I think you're going to enjoy. So
I'm
Michelle,
ready.
let's kick us off.
So now it's time for mystery Q&A. These questions are completely random and they have not been shared with any of us prior to asking. So my question is going to be on the vein of it is almost summer, or it is kind of summer, because it's hot as fuck in Florida. But it's almost summer season with the end of school and all of that. So ideal vacation. What is your dream ideal vacation? Money's not an object. And
where are we going after a long book for? Yeah. What are we doing?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Probably. Well, summer is a little rough for this location, but probably the Amalfi Coast, which I know in summer is hot and humid. So humid.
I don't think it's Florida humid though. I don't know.
No,
it'd be comparable.
And it doesn't break at all. Yeah, it doesn't break, and it literally never breaks. It's like so humid. And when we were there, we were like, when does it rain? And they were like, fall. And I was like, what? It's just always like this. It's like, this is cruel and unusual. My people are from Ireland, where it's like never warmer than like 80 degrees, and it's like absolutely not. So yeah, I think the Amalfi Coast, because I want to sit by the sea and have like a little
lemon sherbet type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
All right.
See lemons the side of my head, Yeah.
Yes. That's always fascinating to me whenever I see those that go viral, the different lemon things that they have for Amalfi.
Yeah.
So have you been before, or this would be like your dream option?
I have. It's just been, I think I went in 2016. So it's been like 10 years. Yeah.
So you want to go back. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, honestly, I probably would do the reverse because we live in such a hot environment that maybe I would go to like Banff or like one of the Canadian national parks or like Montana. I would love to go up to Montana and do some of their, they have a couple of national parks up there that I would love to check out and just do something completely opposite than like the beach thing we have here, because we're kind of spoiled that we can do that year round and in a sense, but also it is so hot that it's like burn your feet on the sand hot. It's not like enjoyable. It's
it's not. It's like miserable. Yeah.
You're just getting new layers of skin. Really?
Yes. I'm like, I thought something like that.
Yeah.
Camping in a place like of good temperature. That would be my like nice.
That was like my initial thought was like, oh, where can I go? But then I was like, I just kind of want to lay around and like have drinks and good food. So I feel
when I say camping, it's really glamping. Like I just want to go. I don't have to pack a bunch of shit. Like I want to get there and it's like a yurt or something. Like it already has, like the things that would be perfect. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I also want to go somewhere that's cooler. So I immediately want to go, I'm thinking Switzerland. We haven't been in almost a decade.
Oh, nice.
So I would like to just have a nice little cabinish thing, on the mountainside eating fondue. So,
like a fire pit, like a fire pit. That's nice. Okay, I would like to go to everyone's vacations that they've mentioned. Yeah, I think all of this would be fun.
Have you
do like a book retreat?
So, have you ever done sledding in Switzerland?
I have not. So me and my husband, we went for our honeymoon, and it was in August. There was like barely any snow on like the tippy tops of the mountains. Yeah. So it was the flowers were in bloom. It was beautiful.
It's beautiful.
And we definitely swam in Lake Lemon, what? The main lake, by Geneva. But it was definitely not. I haven't gone sledding. Have you gone sledding?
Yes, it is so fun.
Oh my God.
It's literally like the ski slope. Yeah, I went to where did I go? Grindelwald when I went, and there's like the ski slopes, and then right next to it is the sledding hill.
Oh,
and
wow.
you take the train up to the top, and then you ride your sled down, and it takes a while, like
I love
my
that
son would
because
love
I
But it
can't
took
ski
like
worth
2
shit.
hours to get to the bottom. Yeah, I can't ski at all. I did try while I was there, which I don't recommend trying to learn to ski in the Alps.
Yeah, not a good place
Not
for that. No,
beginner
those are like all
friendly.
professional.
No.
Yeah.
0 out of 5 stars. I fell down the Alps so hard. Like gracelessly, shamelessly. And like this one,
That would be me.
I'll never forget. I was like, I fell down this one hill and I was like sitting there, like just kind of like being like, ugh. And I like sat up and right next to the hill were like these children, like probably like 6 years old, doing like slalom. Like,
Oh my
perfectly.
gosh.
And one of the mothers turns around and she was like, "Oh, is it a difficult hill?" And I was like, "Not for other people. It's fine for everyone else. I just have no idea what I'm doing." So, but the sledding was so fun, and I was like, I cannot believe that like we're allowed to do this as adults. It's like the hardest I've laughed as an adult because it's literally like you're doing like Mario Kart, like but as adults, like you're on the sled, and it was. I mean, I was laughing. We were all laughing so hard. I had cramps like in my stomach from laughing so hard at like watching everybody like wipe out and stuff because you are going so fast.
I bet.
I think it's so dangerous. I can't even believe that we're allowed to do this. But it was so much fun. Like, I mean, you're so close to the ground that you can just like roll off if like something happens.
Yeah,
But like,
emergency plan, just tuck and roll.
it really was so funny. And we had the best time. And like, we kind of went the first day as like, we were like, we'll just like see what it's like. And then we went every single day. And all the other people were like, what are you like doing sledding? Because there's like a ski trip. And they were like, what are you doing sledding? And like these like 2 like tough guys or whatever were like, oh yeah, we're tired today. We'll like come sledding with you. And they like thought it was going to be so dumb. And they loved it. They were like, this is the best. And I was like, I told you. I was like, it is like genuinely really fun. And I think it's because you can take the train up and just like go down all day and you can stop and like get like, you know, wine or beer.
And then take the train back up and it's like low key.
pastry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Not
then
worried about like
back up.
ramming into each other. Like the last time I
No.
went skiing, I never made
Skiing
it
is
past the
stressful.
baby slope. I was
it's
with 5-year-olds. I was like Bambi with the 5-year-olds.
Yeah, and I'm gonna like
Nope.
mow down some kid and I'm feel terrible because I don't know how to stop and I'm big. The ground is so much farther away.
Exactly.
I've never tried snowboarding for that reason. The whole idea of like
course
my
they have
2
no
feet
fear.
strapped to one
Yeah.
board, I was
got
like,
it.
that's not happening.
I would keep
cannot.
trying to move them separately. You know, like I would keep like trying to lift my feet.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
There's no way I couldn't adapt. There was no way
Yeah.
I could do that. Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
So my question for you, and generally, is like, and it's technically not supposed to be bookish, but the fact that you mentioned poisonous plants in your book, I was like, okay, she must be somewhat of a plant girly, and maybe this is totally off base. But if you were to go buy a plant, like, what's your go-to plant of choice? What are we like? What's our plant friend? Who do we like?
Such a good question. I do love plants, and I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4 in this room.
There you go.
They're just all behind you. So I really love my pothos. I have a neon pothos that I love, and philodendrons, just because they are very low maintenance and they always look good. Like I've had them for 6 years now, and like the fact that they've stayed alive this whole time is impressive. I mean, truly in spite of me. And I think those are probably my favorites. I did used to have a monstera that essentially, again, despite my neglect, just really thrived in our guest room because it had a lot of natural light. And I thought it would be too much because most of the plants that I put in there got sunburned, which plants can get sunburned, by the way. And so I had to like give it away. It was like taking over everything. It was huge. It was much bigger than me. I couldn't move it by myself.
Oh gosh. Okay.
And I'm 5'4", so it was very big.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I have to give this away now. So, but that was like previously my pride and joy, and his name was Hank.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. No, good
Oh, so you
question.
named him.
All right, Michelle. What about you?
I am not a plant girly at all. I have like 2 plants. I have a monstera that has not died yet. I watered it this morning, so I remembered for once. And I have one of those vine plants that are in the bathroom because it gets a lot of natural sunlight.
Yeah.
And it refuses
Like
to
humidity?
die.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's good. I cannot. My
Yeah.
husband is the one that keeps all the plants outside. Like he'll like we have like blackberry a bush now and we have like tomatoes growing stuff. That is not me. I've
had no luck with outside plants, but my inside plants seem to thrive no matter what I do. So there's that. That's at least. Great. How about you, Danny?
I like a good ZZ plant. They're difficult to kill. So I've had some success there. What I really love some cute like succulent plants, and I've killed all of them. I've killed
so many succulents.
I've killed so many.
It's kind of embarrassing because like they're supposed to be easy to take care of.
They're so cute. I know exactly. They're like they market them as like the easiest plant, and I cannot tell you. I have killed more of those than any other plant. I have 2 fiddle leaves, and those things should have died a long time ago, and they're carrying
so
on.
Finicky,
and I'm like my succulents dead. They're like they at the Lowe's or wherever your homes repair stores, whatever. You go in and like they're like, look at the succulent. It's right here. It's in direct sunlight this whole time, and you don't even barely have to water. I'm like, okay, great. Put it in the cart, and I sold it. Like it's like a banana or an avocado. I get home, and it's just like things are already falling off. I'm like taking it out of the car, and there's stuff falling off.
You recently got gifted one too, didn't you?
Yeah. Well,
what I thought is it alive?
Hey, we're trying our best here. I don't know. It's doing its thing. I put it by the putting over in the sunlight.
The crocheted one.
Yeah, I need those, or like completely fake ones, because like I did like you give it the ice cube, right? And you're like, okay, let you slowly get your water. I'm gonna put you in not direct, but sort of direct. Okay, the light shines at this time, so you're getting the heat. You don't overthink it, but I did like really because I've killed so many. I'm like, finally, I'm gonna be successful at this. I have yet to. So it's succulent. It's the dream. We're just not there yet. It does make me feel better that others have struggled with this.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, totally. It's not just you. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Well, Sheila, you can ask us a mystery Q&A question if you want. We don't have to put you on the spot, or we can move on. It's up to you.
Okay. How about like can I do a fuck, marry, kill of characters from the book? Okay,
absolutely.
Okay. Let's do it.
Okay, fuck, marry, kill, but it's Henry, Kellen, and Bryce.
Oh, oh God.
Okay,
Michelle, you can go first.
I would
threw you right under the bus.
Bryce. Bryce would be a good time.
Yeah, a good time, and he has Kenny Meyer's magic. So he would be a good time.
No, he would. Yeah. And then I'd marry Henry, and then unfortunately I'd kill Kellen.
Poor Kellen.
I know. Okay, poor Kellen. It's not that Kellen, anything's wrong with Kellen, but I feel like his healing magic would be important. And I kind of like the possessiveness. I normally don't like possessive, but I actually liked it in his character. Same. Usually it's like an ick for me, but his touch me and die. I'm like, ooh, okay. Maybe you can bite me.
Is like in real life, you're like, no, ever to this. But like for some reason it works in books. Like I'm like in real life, I would be like, let's be serious.
Please, sir, calm down.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. But like in the book, I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, sure. Whatever you want, sir.
Yeah. I switched to my. I agree with you, but I'm going to use a loophole. And I'm sorry, but I'm not that sorry. So I am going to fuck Kellen because I feel like he already has, knows what he's doing. Clearly, he already got a third on the way. We're successful. We know what we're doing. Then I would marry Bryce, and then I would kill Henry because Henry can come back. So he's not really dead. Okay. So that's my loophole.
She's cheating.
I cheated.
Yeah, that's cheating.
Totally.
I'll take it. I'll accept it.
That's cheating.
You can use the rules of the world to benefit yourself.
You didn't exclude it as a rule. So I feel like
I support it. I get it. Yeah.
So. Okay, but what about you?
Yeah. So hard. I think
just why choose?
I'm so torn.
Honestly, can I just?
I know.
Honestly,
no, it really is.
My world.
I feel like Kellen is such a good husband. You know what I mean? Like Harlow says that thing about how he would spend all this time going to all the shops around town to find like a book that Libby hadn't read yet. Which, like, if you're in like an enclosed space, like you only have so many options and stuff. And I love that, like, that was like something that he always did. And that, like, Harlow noticed that, like, intention that he like brought to their relationship. And they've been together for such a long time that, like, he's still doing that. It's like he's very, like,
still has that romance. Sheila, it was a tough call. I almost married him, but the reason I went with Bryce because he was really funny. And I was like, I know that's a good one. I'm gonna.
I know, and I think I have to agree too. I think it's really hard to pick between all of them. Yeah, and obviously Henry, he's great. Yeah.
So what are we doing? We're doing the thing. What are we doing?
I think I would have to marry Henry and fuck Bryce and kill Kellen.
Oh,
I know, it's so hard.
Poor Kellen.
I do think he's such a good husband, and, like, you know, we don't know him like that because he's Harlow's brother, but, like, you know, you can get it. Like you said, Michelle, like, he's got 3 kids, and, you know, you can tell he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, but, like, I want to be chased by Bryce. Like, that hunt needs to happen.
For the rest of the life there, you know, I mean, hey.
And also the first thing that Kellen did when the attack happened was make sure that she was, like, hidden. And then also he assigned his bodyguard to be watching her, which is when Harlow was like, what are you doing? Like, you need to have protection. He was like, and she didn't know about everything yet. And then it, like, clicked and she was like, that's why. So, yeah.
Well,
I think because,
awesome.
Right. Because Kellen was like, his perspective was from Harlow. So
yeah,
I
so
think
he's not going to be sexy in this book. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I still picked up on, like, the nuance of him, like those little subtle details of how caring and, like, loving he was, to your point of, like, because you made a point of mentioning, like, how good of a brother he is and how good of a husband he was to, like, his sister-in-law. And I think that's so important because so many of her siblings and so many of the other characters in this book are not good people. So when you finally see someone actually, like, doing good, kind things, they kind of tend to stand out. So that was a good round.
And it was
tough to choose from.
Yeah, and there were a lot of, like, arranged marriages, but theirs was like they are in love, you know. So I also think from that perspective it stands out too. So yeah. Exactly. Awesome. Okay. Thank you guys so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah,
thank you for joining us. We had a blast.
We did.
Talking Poison Daughter, talking all the things. This was an amazing time.
Yeah, it was so great. And I will definitely let you know if I head down to Florida at some point.
Yes, please tell us.
Yeah, because I would love to visit New Romantics, and they're so cute. The store's so cute. I've only seen it in, like, pictures and from friends being there, but I'm always like, I'm gonna go. So
the owner is amazing too.
I know, I've heard nothing but, like, fantastic things. So yeah.
Awesome. Yes, if you make it this side of the world, please come see us.
I will, for sure.
All right.
Yeah,
All right. Well, before we wrap up, let's talk about what's coming up next on Book Club After Dark.
Yes, next week we are visiting Kingdom of Claw by Demi Winters. We're going back into the Ashen series. We're looking forward to continuing to explore this series with you.
And don't forget, we want to hear from you if you have thoughts on The Poison Daughter or anything we've been reading. Or if you have suggestions for future reads, drop a comment below or message us on one of our social media platforms at Book Club After Dark Pod. Show us your fan art, theories, or anything bookish you'd like to share.
You can also visit our website at bookclubafterdark.co. You can stay up to date on everything that we're covering. And if you want to reach out to Sheila, she has her website as well, ShielaMasterson.com. And you can find her books with Zando projects as well. And then, of course, available for pre-order at all the indie bookshops and all the ones that are located on Zando as well. So you can go check all that out. If you have questions for Sheila, you can feel free to drop a comment below. Sheila's very active on all of her socials, and I'm sure she'll see them. So, That's
all for tonight. Sleep tight, night owls. Until next time, happy reading.